How's it going, everyone, and welcome to a very late edition of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com. The favorite show hosts are still.
By which he means whatever is left of Fenurion,
Yes.
and Volatel. And we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week that was, if we feel like it, considering how boring it was. I'm not sure that we'll try too hard. But
Well, something supposedly happened this week. I just don't care.
The state of the games industry when a video game podcast doesn't want to talk about one of the year's biggest conferences.
Because there was nothing to talk about.
well, I mean, stuff happened, but it's all a bit old hat now. It's the same old song and dance at this point. Nobody has a trace of imagination or creativity anymore. So
yeah. That, and like I told Vol before the show started, I just don't trust these people.
Yeah, they're lying. 90% of the time they're lying. They're not even good lies. They're not even interesting lies most of the time.
No, they're just lies.
I remember
If you're gonna lie, at least make it a lie that fills people with hopes, like Molyneux used to trot out.
Yeah.
I will take trees growing in real time as a lie over what we get now.
But Molyneux's lies were always at least interesting.
But yeah, trees grow in real time. That's pretty advanced for a Xbox One game.
Yeah.
But now they promise basic features and they don't make it in.
Looking at you, Todd Howard. When's that game going to actually work?
In due course.
Eventually. I've actually considered loading up Fallout 76 again the other day just to see how bad it still is.
I doubt it's worth it.
Yeah, and then I realised that I have better things to do with my time. Like, stare at a blank wall.
At this particular juncture, it seems like your free time is rather precious. You ought not waste it on Todd Howard.
Precious. Yes.
So,
incidentally,
we've been trying to peer pressure him to come spend time with Yoshi P.
I would happily spend time with Yoshi P in Yoshi P's magical dreamland of fun and, actual fun.
This year he's doing the hovering in space thing.
Oh, he likes that one. It's a classic.
I do sort of find it weirdly touching. I'm not quite sure why.
Where he just once a year he takes time out of his day to, break the fourth wall and say thank you to his players. Incidentally, you seem to be having a bad case of edgelord at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a more appropriate class for this level area. If I'm just going to be running in circles, killing the odd mob that crosses my path rather than doing anything particular.
Yeah, I'll run off and do my machinist quests very soon, but... So yeah, there goes Vol, and he's gone. And here's Ari.
I have a bear.
You have bear. Let me see what weird mounts I have.
I have Burb.
You do have Burb. I have... I need more mounts. I need to go get more mounts. Oh, yes.
Getting more mounts in Final Fantasy is work, though.
It is work, but it's well worth it.
Real...
Yeah, even the recolors
real
are unique.
serious business work.
Yeah, even the recolored mounts, though, have something going for them. The Dancey Dance.
Yeah. I mean, what do you have to do? Like, murder Ifrit over and over again or something? I can't even remember where a lot of the easier mounts come from.
Yeah.
What we need to get is the Shiva mount because it plays our music.
It does. But you do a lot of the... Oh, wait, this mount glides. That's interesting to know.
Everything flies now.
Oh, okay, that's new, is it?
In the old world, you can fly. There's invisible walls all over the place and you can't land on top of most stuff, but you can fly.
Ah, okay, I hadn't actually known that.
I didn't know it until I logged back in. That's a new.
That is a new.
It happened when I hit level 55, I think.
And it's also noting that just about every mount does fly too.
Yeah, my bear can fly.
Although flying is only a given quantity. Like the bear takes the behemoth path of flight. Almost. Behemoth just kind of beats the air into submission, and that's how he flies. He just punches his way through the sky. And the bear just kind of frolics. I mean, are you going to argue with Behemoth if he says he can fly?
I've always thought behemoths look rather ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, they
It wouldn't be so bad if you were sitting in the seat of his back with a raised chair, but you're sitting on a raised chair on his butt.
Yeah, they got to sit on his butt.
Well, the thing is that as he moves along, his butt stays more or less stable. The rest of him doesn't. It flails
It is
around, so-
probably the most stable place. So, anywho, this is probably what we're going to be doing for the show, is just talking nonsense and doing silly things in Final Fantasy. And here's this person over who's just turned up over here wondering what on earth these three idiots are doing flying around on mounts. My week has basically been a hellhole of work and no free time. I have continued to chip away at Dragon Quest Builders. I think I'm on the third major island. The third of 3. Unless there's a hidden one afterwards. So yeah, it continues to be, just a Dragon Quest fare crossed with Minecrafty stuff. It does continue also to be increasingly self-aware, as a lot of the more recent Dragon Quest games are. Like, you have a slime who pops up and says, "Oh, I suppose you expect me to say that I'm a good slime, la 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 la." Well, screw that! So, I appreciated that, at least. The fact that everyone comments on your character's stupid, completely gormless face.
You have a dumb face.
Well, your character has this permanent, the Toriyama smile. Just that happy, Goku's default face. Yeah, completely vacant. There's nothing going on behind those eyes. And everyone notices. They call you that dopey-looking kid. Considering you're running around with the actual big bad of the piece. Nobody comments on him. They talk about his weird eyes at one point, but that's about it. The fact that he looks obviously evil. So yeah, it's on Game Pass, which is why I'm actually playing it. I believe if you want to buy it, it's still top dollar because, Square Enix.
Square Enix.
Well, the Square Enix can be really onto it sometimes when it comes with promotions, right? Like, when what's his name? I think it was when Asmongold decided that he was going to ditch WoW for Final Fantasy. Like, immediately Square Enix's marketing people were like, "Okay, deep discount now, now, do it now."
Yeah, look, free money. I can't go to the Coils of Bahamut the hard way.
I mean, it's true. It's true that it was free money, but it was also unusually attentive for a gaming marketing division.
Yeah, usually when something like that happens, yeah, they'll miss it entirely. Usually,
yeah, there are implications for these particular occurrences, and they actually attended to them, which is curious.
Yeah. Well, that could like no higher. I am sad. So yeah, for a grand total of paying nothing, Dragon Quest Builders is a lot of fun. I'm quite enjoying it. It's silly. It's very light and fluffy. I will be probably playing Psychonauts 2 next because that's actually out now. I want to play it.
Good things about it.
Yeah, I want to play it, but I also don't want to play it. I'm going into it blind.
Well, this sounds like a good time to have zero expectations.
Yeah. If I go in with zero expectations, then... Oh, no, not quite zero expectations. I have the expectations that the first game set. So,
Well, I mean, it hasn't aged that well, but it was still pretty darn good in its time.
yeah, and the writing still holds up. But being, modern age, and I hate using that argument. Because it's 2020, we can't trust game developers not to pee on their own legacies.
Considering that Double Fine and Schaefer in particular are unbelievably woke, I expect that it's going to be incredibly cringe.
Considering it's a game about exploring the minds of people with obvious mental illness,
So they're coworkers.
yeah, it's either going to be completely lacking in self-awareness or just horribly on the nose the entire way through.
It's like every character that every new character that you meet is going to inform you of their pronouns.
Please no.
But you aren't sure that it's not going to happen.
No. No, I'm not.
I give it better than even odds that at least a few characters will.
I mean, at least I'm not giving them direct money for it. It's, again, Game Pass, but if they start doing that stuff, I'm going to ask for my money back.
You're gonna make Tim Schafer come to your house and hand you $0?
Yes. Mostly so I can kick him in the shins.
He's also one of those developers who has absolute contempt for gamers and his fans.
That seems to be a real growing thing. Like, we'll probably, if we actually do have time later on in the news section, we'll see it with the Saints Row thing, where they're saying, "Oh, we've kept the irreverent tone of the previous games," but
By turning all the characters into San Francisco hipsters.
yes. I mean, what's
Man.
their crime spree going to be? Going over and knocking over people's overly expensive coffee?
It's gonna be like stealing MacBook chargers or something.
Yeah.
Taking candy from a nacho.
Jeez. Why you do this? I'm going to leave to talk about guns with a lady. Where was that? Foundation.
Following you around, my bear.
Leaving. I'm going to go
I'll
off.
follow you.
Except you can follow me now, yes.
Oh, he gives me a prompt to follow you.
Curse you, tracery game systems. So, yeah, that's probably going to be my upcoming week is, play Psychonauts 2 and try not to be disappointed. As for the rest of my week, that's basically been it. It's just been a horrible, horrible week. The armor cut it short. Oh, wait, where am I supposed to be going? Boulder Downs, right. So I'm just going to end it there. Vol, please say you actually did something.
I suppose I could say something. So I wanted to play some video, so I took a day off from work, and I woke up on Tuesday morning, and I sat down at my computer, and I went to fire a Final Fantasy, and it said, "We're going to be under maintenance for 9 hours."
Oof.
And there was a great cry to the heavens.
Yes.
In my chat window.
Was this on the knees, arms flailing in towards the heavens?
It was death some boo shees.
But yeah, so I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I just couldn't. So I decided that instead I would play Monster Hunter Stories 2, and I made some progress in that. So I have now completed the primary storyline, and it's moved on to high rank. So all the storyline ends up being very Monster Hunter, in that they the story is basically divided into the first 3/4 and the back quarter. And the first 3/4 is where you constantly learn about the power of kinship over and over again. And the back
Yeah.
quarter is where you hunt a bunch of monsters, and then suddenly a world-ending calamity monster comes up, and then you hunt it.
Yeah, story over
So-
the end.
That's basically every Monster Hunter game.
Basically,
Every game, all of them. They're all exactly this way. So
I would say
yeah.
World is an exception, but no, it just kind of drew out the first three sections of the game, and then suddenly Xeno'jiiva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the final boss was not what I would call difficult in the conventional sense. It was you would be able to beat it with the exact same difficulty as every other monster that you fought for the first time, provided that you follow the same sort of logical decision making
Mm-hmm.
when you are trying to work out what is the best way of dealing with it. And other than being a much longer fight, it's more or less plays out in a conventional fashion. The It is, in fact, not as hard as pretty much any given one of the quest board fights that are flagged as hard as you go through the story.
Oh, some of those are really tough, especially if you do them
Yeah.
level appropriate.
Yeah, I've did a bunch of them level appropriate. I didn't do all of them because they took so long. A lot of those fights take a really long time, but they don't have very much room for error. You have to do things correctly, or you're in strife. So the boss wasn't as hard as that, and I could sort of feel that they weren't aiming to make it as hard as that, since it's not optional content, and you need to do it in order to access most of the game and most of the rest of the game. So yeah, now I moved into the post game and basically got a look at how that works going forward, and way too much of the game seems to hinge chiefly on reloading zones over and over again at this point, because what you're more or less aiming to do is curating a team of monsters that are truly monstrous, because the latter challenges in the game are very brutal. So what you're going to be primarily doing is genetic engineering on your favorite monsters, and it seems like there are variations in base stats for monsters. Like I think from memory, the monster with the best base stat spread in the game is Velcana, followed not too far behind by Nergigante. But the base stats are sort of, they affect things, but they aren't the be all and end all. When you've finished constructing your Doom Beast, it's going to be, most of its power is going to be primarily from the genes that you give it. So monsters that you encounter in the game are divided between normal monsters and high rank monsters, as is conventional, but monsters are not. Monsters are just monsters. So the difference is that the further you are through the game, the more likely a monster is to have better genes. And when you are in high rank, you can get rare dungeons that are either high rank rare or normal rare. But just because a dungeon is not a high rank rare dungeon doesn't mean that the monster eggs that you steal from it aren't going to have really good genes on them. So you shouldn't skip over them just because they're not high rank dungeons. You're going to have much better odds if you go to a high rank dungeon, and there are often rarer monsters available to be filched from the nest, but you can still farm the rare ones, especially if you're like me and have had Nagakuga in your party the entire time. And so every time you go into a den, you just turn on stealth, loot the eggs, and run out.
Nagakuga is so good, though. Especially for nonsense like that.
It's worth noting that as soon as you hit the post game, most nests, most dens will have at least like 3 bottle caps in them. So if you really need bottle caps because you want to buy vouchers to do particular missions or whatever, you can just farm them by doing tons and tons and tons of dens. There's no difficulty farming them. Which brings me to the second part of it. Like most of your time, you're going to be finding a base monster that you think is cool. Like I'm a big fan of Mezitsune, so I found me a Mezitsune, and then you spend a lot of time trying to find monster eggs that will have monsters that have the genes you want to pass on to your base monster and make it into, the bubble snack of doom or whatever. I'm making progress on that, but it's a very, very big undertaking. It's not something that you can do even in an afternoon necessarily. If you're lucky, you will be able to, but if you're not lucky, then you might just not get the genes that you need. And the resources that I've seen online are not very good.
No.
If I was part of the Reddit community, I'm sure that they and their community are probably passing around a bunch of spreadsheets that have got useful stuff on them. But basically, all of my progression has been done from like bits and pieces of my own notes that I've taken and things that I've seen people say online and whatnot. So it's actually quite hard to find the things that you want a lot of the time. Like there aren't very many good resources that will list where you can find particular genes or anything. They do exist, but they're all rather piecemeal. Nobody's sat down and made a master list that I could find. Maybe one exists. If somebody knows, please tell me. But yeah. So you're going to be building your monster of choice. And the reason you do this is because there are lots of really tough challenges in the game and very rare monsters that are hard to get. And generally speaking, you should be able to fight high rank monsters right out of the storyline, but some of them will just completely kick your butt. Like, I, by chance, ran into a high rank, I can't remember what it's called. It's that desert version of Barioth.
Oh, jeez.
It ate me for lunch. Like, it was not a fair fight, and it was on the starter island.
That's an unpleasant place to find something like that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell where, like, because there are so many variants in the game and not really that many zones. Oftentimes you can find really high-end stuff that just happens to like the biome of a level that you associate from the story as having been a lower level area.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the monster is lower level. So in the first room, I ran into a Pookie, and it was a long battle, but it's just Pookie, so I was able to bring it down. Next room, I run into this Barioth, and it completely destroys me. So yeah, I had very, very, very few game overs in the storyline. I have had plenty of game overs since the story that ended and the post game began, because sometimes the monster just says no.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried to fight anything particularly hard yet. I've been very wary of going and jumping in with both feet. I can most of the stuff from the mid game I can bring down pretty stably, but the high rank ones use the same strategy that the lower rank counterparts do.
Okay, that
so
makes
you
sense.
You don't have to recollect all of the data that you've collected over the course of the story. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the thing is that what you're basically aiming for is that you build monsters that you like to get monsters that are rare. So I'm talking things like Dread Queen Rathian and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Bloodbath Diablos, those types.
The Deviants.
Yeah, Deviants plus Elder Dragons. So, because their base stats are enormous, and if what you are wanting is to participate in PvP, then there are basically two main strats. Number one is you build complete monsters that are meta, or number two, you try and come up with a strategy that is very, very, very unlikely to have occurred in the meta, but is incredibly obnoxious so that people give up. Yeah, so a lot of people's pursuits of the perfect monster will be aimed at PvP. I have no interest in that, but generally speaking, hunting the rare monsters is fun. The thing is that it's really strongly oriented towards co-op. It's not like you can't do it single player. People can do it single player, and they can do it very successfully single player. The problem is that you are more likely to have a wallbanger moment if you are playing single player. During the course of the story, the battle difficulties are all balanced for the fact that you're going to have a complete Drongo accompanying you most of the time.
Yes.
The post-game battles are balanced for co-op. Like, they're mostly, you'll buy a ticket for bottle caps to create a special rare mission, and then you will get a friend and you'll go in there and you will fight this monster together, and then you will get your eggs as the prize. That's the rough gameplay loop that you're looking at for in-game monster hunting, monster gathering. If you don't have a friend, you have one of these Drongos with you.
Mm.
The battles are not balanced for having a complete moron who screws everything up. And you will have to spend a lot of time saving their backside. So, yeah. Basically, I'm putting Monster Hunter stories sort of semi on ice until Fern and or Ari have time to play some, so that I will actually have a co-op partner rather than an AI controlled idiot who is like having Persona 3 Mitsuru in your party all the time.
Stop casting ice when it heals, you dope.
Well, it's more like Marin Karin. But
Current every turn.
It's Marin Karin. No, I ran into the healing Bufus.
they should only do that once, and then they stop.
Yeah, my Mitsuru was broken.
But are you sure you want to replace the AI with me and Fern? Because you know what'll happen if it's me and Fern.
Complete shenanigans is what will happen.
Can you remember the rules of rock, paper, scissors? Because this is the level we're talking here.
I think you underestimate our ability to cause shenanigans.
Yes.
The other thing is that a human player has a better stable of items at their disposal.
Also monsties, because the AI companions only have one monstie.
Yeah, that's also true. I don't know whether or not that also applies to the companions that you take in multiplayer quests done solo, because they generate special companions for that, like randomly generated ones, which are simulations of human players.
Okay.
So they might have multiple monsties, because in co-op, of course, you only get to take 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're beginning your post-game journey towards that sort of phase of the game where you're doing co-op rare egg hunting, you're going to be basically, you want to perfect 3 monsties that you really like, one for each type,
Mm-hmm.
that have a reasonably solid spread and aren't like all weighted towards one element or something.
And I'm
So
going to
that
assume Wrath is locked. For
No,
multiplayer?
Ratha gets unlocked at the end of the story mode, so you don't have to take Ratha anymore.
Okay, good.
Otherwise, it would make every party very boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm working on my bubble snack, because my next best technical was Ketcha Watcha. So I decided I needed to improve on that, and so Bubble Snack is the order of the day. And it turns out Bubble Snack has actually a really, really good water stat, like the best in the game water stat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Whereas
Decent
Ketchwacha has a
choice.
weird proboscis.
yeah, it doesn't stop moving.
Doesn't ever stop
But,
moving.
Yeah, okay. So in contrast to Monsties, though, every armor set in the game seems to have a high rank version.
That
So
makes sense.
you do have to go and hunt the high rank monsters to get the high rank parts and build the high rank armor, which can be a bit of an ordeal. And I haven't made much progress with it yet, because them monsters, they are not safe. I'm thinking of once I've done with Mizutsune, I think I might actually recruit me a Bagel Goose to be my power monster.
Yes!
And then I'm going to go full fire and blast genes on it.
Just to return the favour.
Yeah, I want Bagel Goose to be on my side for once.
He's never on your side. Even when he's on your side, he's not on your side.
The other thing that this just may be an illusion that I've gotten from the places that I've happened to be playing when I was playing Monster Hunter Stories 2 in the post game, but I felt like no matter where I went, there was always Devil Joe waiting for me, and not just Devil Joe, but also Devil Joe eggs in every nest.
Don't you not like pickles?
Well, sometimes you want to be able to avoid them, but I felt like it didn't matter what zone I was in. I would go to the nest and I'd pull out a Devil Joe egg.
Yeah, it sounds about right, honestly.
On the upside, if you are Devil Joe inclined, it's an extremely good base monster to build a dragon element monster from.
I'm
Because
assuming
his
his
stats
power.
are really, really solid. Yeah, he's power, I think. I'm fairly sure he's power. He's power, and he has a really strong dragon stat. So if you want to build, dragon hoses, then he's a real good pick.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not sure where you find the base stat information. Like, I've seen people on YouTube who are discussing the mechanics of Monster Hunter Stories have had screenshots of spreadsheets where all of the base stats are discussed and whatnot, but I don't know where those spreadsheets are. I don't know who's circulating them or where to find them, and I haven't been able to so far. But yeah, it's best not to worry too much about it, because you're going to be spending a lot of time hunting genes to get your monsters the way you want. So it is much better to do it for a monster that you really like.
Yeah.
And a lot of the monster, unless you happen to be like a dyed-in-the-wool fan of Velocidrome, you're not going to have to be worrying about getting stuck in a position where you have to use a monster that is really, really weak in base stats. And I've also heard, this is just something I've heard in passing, I've done no research, that one of I think there's like a super powerful secret boss at the bottom of like the in-game dungeon that I haven't been to yet. And I've heard that one of the optimal strats to beat it is to use a ridiculously tricked out Aptonoth.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know what the theory is behind it, but there's something that I've heard.
Probably because it's just a big hit point sponge.
Well, it's a big hit point sponge that also heals like a boss.
Yeah. The thing just
Like,
doesn't
as far as
die.
healing goes, yeah, as far as healing goes, Aptonoth is probably one of the best monsters in the game.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's lots of room to do different builds though as well. Like there are some really cool builds that I'd like to try at some point in the future, which are based entirely around using support monsters and tricking out your rider, and then just doing all your damage with the greatsword,
Yeah.
pretending to be a hunter, and your monster just plays support. But yeah, so there's a lot of in-game room there, but like I said, most of the fun of it seems to be partnering up with somebody and building a really cool team between you, and then taking on these challenges later in the game and that sort of thing. It seems to be what it's built around, much in the way that Monster Hunter only has so much lifespan if you aren't playing with other people.
Mm.
But yeah.
So, yeah, I'll
okay,
dust it
so-
off at the first opportunity, but yeah, time is a commodity.
Well, yeah, I've put it on ice for now because number one, I don't have any co-op partner, and number two, I'm going to go and visit my parents this coming month, and I'm not going to be having my PC with me. My parents' PC is a brick, so I'm going to take the Switch with me instead. And Monster Hunter Stories is going to be the game of choice, I think. So it seems like the update loop for Monster Hunter Rise has really tailed off quite fast,
Yeah,
which
it
makes me
has.
wonder if there's like a G rank around the corner or something. I don't know how it works with portable Monster Hunter.
Well, usually this is kind of the first time, well, second time counting World, I suppose, that they've actually done expansions. In previous
But
generations,
have they announced? Because I haven't been watching the whatchamacallit, the
Neither have I, actually.
roadmap. So I don't know if they've announced an expansion or not.
Let's have a look. I will ask ye old internet.
I would have thought I would have seen more chatter about it if they had, but regardless, if there's like a G rank around the corner, a G rank game, then that might explain why they haven't put as much oomph into continuing to update Monster Hunter Rise, which is a shame, I suppose. Monster Hunter Rise has very nice fluid feeling combat, although I feel more affection for Monster Hunter World than I do for Rise. But maybe it's just the case that everybody feels that for their first one.
Yeah. Speculation. No announcements yet, but a lot of speculation on on G rank.
It's a thing though, right? That they do typically. That
Yeah.
they'll release a G rank one.
Yeah, it's either a G rank if the G rank isn't included in the base game, or a ultimate.
Right.
So, which ultimate is basically, it's a re-release of the game with basically an expansion pack's worth of content tacked onto it as well.
Very Capcom.
Very, very Capcom.
At any rate, I would think I would prefer for them to go the Iceborne route.
I think Iceborne hit the nail right on the head with going the classic expansion pack route.
The only problem that I have with Iceborne is I don't like the clutch claw. I think that it was
clunky.
It degenerated the gameplay, I think. Because it homogenized strategies into do all of these things with the clutch claw, and then you can fight. And if you don't do all these things with the clutch claw, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just another thing to keep track of when most weapons already have enough to keep track of, plus the monster.
Well, ideally, you should be keeping track of the monster above all else.
Yeah, but with the clutch claw, you got to play the clutch claw minigame and try and hit the right spot on the monster with it.
Yeah, and it was just a pain. Whoopsie.
Yeah, well, I did not feel like it added very much to the game. By contrast, I think that like switch skills do add to the game. Unless you are unfortunate enough to be a main of a weapon which has like switch skills that are so strictly optimal that you never change them for any reason. the switch skills do add a bit of tactical depth to the weapon that doesn't impede the flavor of the weapon at all.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the clutch claw turns every weapon into the clutch claw and X.
Yeah.
So, but so I don't necessarily agree with that sort of radical change in the way the mechanics of combat as such are handled. But I would not mind if they were going to do an ultimate. I would not mind if they like added a couple of extra switch skills per weapon or something, so that you could adapt to a different flavor or something, or maybe even sort of create a half variant of a weapon.
That could be interesting.
Like, I mean, there've been other weapons in Monster Hunter's past, right? That just
4.
never joined the mainstream.
Yeah, there's the Tonfa, the Magnet Riser, the medium bowgun, and there was one more which I can't remember. Medium bowgun is basically the bow now, so you don't need that.
There's something very redheaded stepchild about that name.
It was only in there for Generation 1, if I remember. So you're not missing anything there. What was the other one? There was Magnet Riser, the Tonfa, the medium bowgun. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah,
Well,
Tonfa's
the
been
Tonfa
rolled
w-
into dual blades now.
The monster, the Magnet Riser looks completely bonkers. I'll have to admit, it's all about kind of lodging a hook into a monster and magnetizing yourself to it.
Yeah, the Tonfa was a weird one. From what I've heard, it allowed you to alter where the monster's weak spots were.
It allows you to invert where the monster's weak spots are by switching between
weird.
long and short reach mode.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So at any rate, that was more or less the end of my my spiel on Monster Hunter. So stories, like the story is very much what you expect from Monster Hunter, not the greatest depth one could hope for, really. But the sort of the co-op tail end is very nice, but the grind is very random. Like I said, I've spent most of my time just flying around zones, constantly resetting them to try and get dens to spawn, and that basically ends up being how you play. When it comes to getting Elder Dragon eggs, it seems that you can do it that way as well. However, the odds of that being successful are astronomically low. Like YouTubers that spend all their time playing Monster Hunter, like the Rage Gaming guys, for instance, the shouty guys, they say they've seen maybe 2 in their entire time in the post game of stories.
Wow.
And we're talking people who have like an optimal version of every deviant ground up, and yet they have seen 2 rare dens, 2 super rare dens. But yeah, even if I encountered one now, I probably wouldn't be able to successfully raid it. I'd probably get my butt handed to me. But yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't need to scrap any of your monsters or anything just because you hit the end of the game. However, the genes that monster is carrying are likely to not be very good, and you'll have to spend a lot of time re-engineering them. So if you've got some sort of unnatural attachment to your pixel beast, you can just retrofit in all of the genes you need to turn him into an end-game beast.
Here it is, by the way.
It may not be efficient to do that.
Yeah, weapon number 18 in the Monster Hunter series is the Axel Axe, by the way, which is just basically a giant axe with a rocket engine strapped to it.
We got that for Greatsword, though, didn't we?
Yeah, we basically did.
And it was a real disaster for the meta, because it was the only good Greatsword for like months and months and months and months and months.
Yeah, nobody used anything else. I am sad we didn't get the gun lance design from the second contest, which was just 2 rocket fists. I would have loved that. That's great.
I wanted the muscular hammer.
The muscular hammer was brilliant. It's just a muscular chef on a stick.
Right. So that was that for Monster Hunter. That's what I spent most of my day off playing. FGO, we're in a rest week before Neurofest. I've been trying, in the time leading up to Neurofest, I've been focused on 2 things in FGO. Number 1 is farming eggs, which is a cursed activity. It's very, very, very low drop rate. It's got a rate of something like 170 AP per one.
Ish.
It's one of the worst in the game. It's similar to heart farming in that early on. Not good at all. By contrast, Japan has had a complete revamp of their drop rates in recent months. So I don't even know what their drop rate is like now. But yeah, so I'm focused on that. Plus, I've been doing I'm trying to theory craft out compositions that are going to work for Neurofest, since my focus is going to be lotto box farming once again, not doing the challenges, because the challenges are hugely time consuming and not that rewarding. Like, I know you should never open that Pandora's box, but the reality is that if I really want all those extra summons, I could just buy quartz. But I can't buy the contents of lotto boxes for real money. So I'm not going to put too much emphasis on clearing the challenge quests, because I've done it in the past and it's very, very taxing. So I'll probably focus on ones that have really rare rewards, like any grails or crystallized laws that there are for those quests, and then focus most of my time on lotto box farming, so I can rebuild my reservoir of XP cards. And it's a gem lotto, so if you're short any skill gems, it's going to be a really optimal one to farm. So that's what I've been doing in FGO. FGO's had a major quality of life update, polishing off mostly polishing off sort of like burrs and snarl ups in the code, but there've been a couple of other things added that have been nice as well. Like they've just sort of given a polish to high speed play mode a bit. So, for instance, when you've got it set to play at double speed, in addition to that, it also speeds up things like the title cards for like first wave, second wave, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And it speeds up your card selection, whereas before, if you had a Brave Chain or whatever, it would take some time for the Brave Chain thing to pop up, and so it made Brave Chains really, really unfavorable for.
Oh, thank goodness.
That it still takes some time, but it's been sped up along with all of the other stuff that has been sped up. So it's not just the actual animations that are 2 times speed now; it's everything is 2 times speed. So
It used to be, okay, I want to intentionally pick cards of different colors and try to hit ones with different faces, so we don't have the blank chain pop up when I'm really going ham on farming.
Yeah, so there it's still faster to not have it pop up, but the difference is much, much smaller now because the animations have been sped up. Another thing they added is that when you are trying to get the support you want, they've added a countdown timer to the refresh button.
Thank goodness.
So you can actually see how many seconds are left instead of tapping it over and over and over and over and over again and thinking to yourself, please just pop already. But that does nothing to help you get the support you want. But it does feel a little bit less like you're being mocked. Only by a little bit. But yeah, there are a few other things as well, a few bits and bobs around the place. There's now a button on the lower toolbar of the menus that, like the one that goes to the enhanced screen or the store screen or the summon screen, there's one that takes you straight back to the base terminal as well. So you don't have to just hit back to get there.
No, that was annoying.
So yeah, so it's just a bunch of little quality of lives like that have made things a little bit better. So what else did I do this week? I finally had a little bit of time to get back into Final Fantasy, not as much as I would like, and I feel like the latency is worse now than it used to be for me. I'm not saying that's necessarily the game's fault, because since I was last really playing, I've moved house a couple of times, and there's a lot more people playing now, so there'll be more congestion and that sort of thing. But I do feel like I'm having a bit of difficulty getting used to the latency again, much more than I remember having in the past. Maybe I'm getting old and my brain is slowing down. I don't know. But yeah, I'm still having fun with it. I tried to tool around a little bit with the Gunbreaker, but honestly, it just made me feel a bit dumb because starts at level 60, which sounds fine in principle, until you realise that means it's just going to give you 60 levels worth of skills and scatter them all over the bar for you to try and work out how to use them.
Yeah. Had that happen with Dancer.
Yeah, it's bad enough doing it at level 50.
Yeah, so after tooling around with it a little bit, in the end I more or less just went back to warrior for my level 60 bracket. No, my level 60 bracket tank. Because at least I know where those buttons are, even if they don't necessarily do the same thing they did when I was last playing.
Yeah.
I've picked up leveling my Black Mage again and my my Dark Knight again, just for something to do in the lower brackets as well. But like most of the time when I'm playing Final Fantasy, I don't feel a hugely strong drive to try and speedily push to the end of content or anything like that, because I have a lot of fun just sort of dicking around and doing lower level content and that sort of thing. Although I feel like a retard a lot of the time, because every time now that I go into a dungeon, I'm like, oh shit, I don't remember this place. What am I supposed to do again? This has just been my universal experience. And of course, if I'm leveling something like the Dark Knight, it means every second dungeon that I do is going to be Sastasha or something, and I'll have like 2 buttons to press. And then I'll go back to do something that's level appropriate, and I'll forget that I've got those other buttons and end up doing more stupid stuff. So it's been a bit of a humiliating experience, but Ari's been making progress, leveling through, so eventually we'll be able to start tackling some content that is sort of on a more reasonable level, and we will have a backup person either to tank or DPS for us that will at least presumably have watched a video once. So
yeah. I'll tell a story when we get to my week about that.
Oh no.
Well, I don't actually have much more to talk about since I haven't really done anything particular in Final Fantasy, so I guess I will just end my week there.
Alright, well, might as well carry straight through to your week, Ari, since I didn't really have one.
All right. Well, my week has been a little weird. So first, I had work like normal, but there was nothing that jumped out this week, other than one day I was frantically trying to stop the opossum from doing anything because I didn't want him talking to any of the customers involved in any of the jobs.
Oh, is he drunk?
No, it's just the opossum.
So yes.
So, no, he doesn't drink. Smokes a bit. Doesn't drink.
All right.
But still, these people needed a. I want you to process what I'm about to say. These people needed a more refined taste in language than the opossum could give, and that more refined language had to come from me.
I'm used to dealing with people who sound like horny crows. So
I don't think you understand. It came from me. The person that nicknames everything and calls things the thing and calls everything with 4 legs a dog. That is more refined than the opossum.
That is a disturbing amount.
So, what other non-Final Fantasy 14 stuff? That's really all I kind of played this week. I did a little bit of Pinecone because Abo's Guild is doing the clan battle, but just enough to spend my stamina to do the clan battle for him and then get back on Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, yeah. Which is whatever. I'm still dubious of this game because Crunchyroll's going to screw it up. They just are. So yeah. What else? I think that's about it for stuff that wasn't Final Fantasy 14. The rest of my free time in video gaming. Well, on Thursday I had a lot of free time because I didn't take a voluntary day off work like Vol did. I took an involuntary day where I woke up and I had a horrible stomach bug. It was not good. So I just took Thursday off. So I had quite a bit of time to dick around in Final Fantasy. And on top of just dumping my usual free time into it. So I talked Abo into playing. Been playing with in air quotes. We both been doing main scenario quests, and he's been whenever he hits a dungeon, I go back and help him with it. and we've been playing during the daytime hours, and then I'll usually go take my sleep, and I would get up in the middle of the night and do stuff on my own for a bit. And I managed to chew through all the post game of A Realm Reborn, and I'm finally out of the quagmire that is A Realm Reborn storytelling, and it started to really come into its own finally as a story at about 2.5, right after Shiva.
Yeah.
So
that sounds about the right point for it to really kick in. They've figured out what they actually want to do with the story at that point, I think.
yeah. So there's a joke I've been telling Abo until he finally got to it, that the movie at the end of A Realm Reborn is when the story actually starts.
You're not far wrong.
And because there ain't a whole lot other than either setup or patchwork for the stuff that happened back in 1.0 in A Realm Reborn. Like, go punch Primal, Primal bad. Go punch Garleans, Garleans bad. It doesn't lead to the most compelling story, and I really couldn't see why people were into the story at all. I thought y'all were all just crazy and was trying to be nice to you.
Yeah, before the end of Realm Reborn, the most intriguing thing you really have are who are the Ascians, why are they here, and why are they such edgelords?
Yeah, but they go out of their way not to tell you that and make it clear that it'll be a while.
Yeah. That's specifically held out of your reach.
So, you can't really investigate that. And then you have, what else? That was pretty much all I had to say on the Realm Reborn pre-story. But when I got to Heavensward, the game quickly developed just one more chapter syndrome. And I didn't realize it was doing it.
Yeah, it does. It gets good. Told ya.
Well, I'm not sure what I think of the story yet. It's still too early to call in it. I haven't finished it yet, but I've liked the emotional moments a lot better. When Honchibro dies, you actually are sad Honchibro died.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
I didn't even pronounce his name properly. I don't know.
It's Horchefon, isn't it?
Yeah, Horchefon. It's French, so yeah.
It's French.
French. Nasty.
Yeah, I've just been calling him Honchibro.
He's still a bro.
He
Gloves of Amy. Excellent.
He is so happy that that Senpai notices him every time.
Yeah.
And then he dies protecting Senpai.
He's such a bro.
So he's his emotional moment hit actually hard like it's supposed to. All the other pseudo emotional moments were just kind of tropey, like Minfilia gets kidnapped again.
Yeah.
Well, and that mainly has no impact because it happens every other day. This is like
it's like Princess Peach getting kidnapped. It's just what happens.
It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged with Mokuba.
Oh yeah. It's Tuesday, time for my kidnapping.
Yeah, and every other quest being, okay, let's go back to the Waking Sands.
Yeah, the Waking Sands. Gotta go back to the Waking Sands.
Or Rising Stones later. The only contribution Alphino has made that I am genuinely happy for is he moved the Waking Sands to an Aetheryte.
Yeah, but that only works so long as Urianger is not around. As soon as Urianger turns up, it's, let's go back to the Waking Sands. No matter where you are.
I feel kind of bad for Urianger because oftentimes, including my character, he's just standing there in the middle of a bunch of girls.
But he's also French. Well, his name is French.
His name is French, but he's just an elf.
He's just
Is being an elf synonymous with being French now? Is that how it works?
Yes, they're about as appealing. I really do not like elves. I actually kind of came to that realization a couple of weeks ago. I just do not like elves.
It depends on the series they're from. I play the elf-like race in PSO2, and I play elves in WoW.
Yeah, but the elf-like races in PSO2 aren't really elves. They're humans with silly ears.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Well, they don't have races anymore, remember?
Oh, yeah, and they don't have genders. Because, sex isn't a thing. Your pretty lady is a pretty type 2 body.
Yeah, they could have just used the reason they basically used in Japan, whereas we couldn't be bothered separating things anymore. But no. But let's not talk about that game because it's ruined and awful, and I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, that brings up a good point though. They could have just used the Speedo excuse. Like, sometimes you just want to see a man with a big hairy chest and a bikini.
And other times you just want to see him wearing a dress, because that's funny.
So yeah, I've been chewing through the story. Dungeons I've liked so far. Let me pull up the list so I can remember what the heck I actually did, because I've been doing so much. I wasn't a big fan of the Bugman. I'm having a brain fart in his name. Starts with an R. Ravana.
The he of the pompous theme song.
Yeah, he was not so interesting to fight. The raids. So nowadays you have to complete a series of vanilla Final Fantasy 14 raids to unlock Heavensward.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do this apparently because they became relevant later.
Yeah, so I haven't actually done them, but Ari has done them because when I was playing, they weren't necessary.
Yes.
So yeah, the raids are Labyrinth of the Ancients, which is kind of a boring dungeon. There's nothing of note in there.
Back when it was current, that was really, really fun because it was completely novel type of content. Like no other MMO had content where you basically send in 3 different raid groups with 3 different objectives.
Yeah. So what you find happening is Group B, please stand on the platform. For the love of God, please. Because you need to have 4 people in each group stand on a platform outside of ranged attack range to deactivate a force field on one of the mini bosses.
Yeah, but it doesn't work if one of those groups is standing around picking their nose or something.
Yeah, so one Group B had me on the platform and nobody else.
That was less of a problem. That was less of a problem back in A Realm Reborn because the thing with Labyrinth is that it was the Final Fantasy equivalent of LFR.
Yeah.
So everybody was doing it because it's not like LFR where LFR is the dumb person's version of the regular raid, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people who either can't do or can't be bothered to do the real one. In the case of this, it was just a separate particular type of content. Didn't have a harder mode, but it was accessible to everybody, so everybody did it. So the norm was to go in there and more than half the people would know what they were doing.
Yeah. So the Labyrinth of the Ancients doesn't have anything. Is Behemoth in that one or the next one? I forget.
Behemoth's in the first one because I've done Behemoth several times.
Yes.
So the only other mechanic worth note in there is there's a Behemoth that will mark people with rocks, and you have to run the rocks away from the Behemoth, and you have to kill the ads away from the rocks. What you do not do is do what I did and get the group killed. You do not.
The rocks?
Yeah, there are 2 types of ads. One of them very clearly breaks the rocks. One of them is more humanoid in shape and might break the rocks, but you need to get to the rocks right now because he's about to explode. So I ran behind the rock and drug the big ad over to it and broke the rock. And there was like everybody behind that rock.
Yeah. This is the Behemoth that ended up in Monster Hunter World, by the way.
So I wiped the group. That was my bad. I owned it up in chat. I did not get called autistic.
This time.
But beat that one. And then next was Scylla's Tower. Scylla Tower is... Circus Tower, right. Circus Soleil. So, it is not a happy place with clowns. It's in fact a very boring dungeon these days with nothing at all worth noting. You go in there, none of the mechanics matter at all. All of them can be ignored except for except for the Amon fight, where he will turn 3 random non-tanks into frogs. And those frogs have to go eat the snakes. That's it. That's the only mechanic you actually have to pay attention to. And the last boss has some that you need to kind of pay attention to, where you need to raise a platform underneath people, but it just kind of happens by accident because nobody's paying attention anyway.
Yeah.
So what else? And then there's the fun one, World of Darkness, which is every fight in here has mechanics you have to pay attention to. And the first boss has like a roulette. He's on a roulette wheel. And occasionally he'll mark half the board with one color and the other half with another color, and you have to make sure you're standing on the opposite color that you stood on last time, otherwise you take a big chunk of damage. And if you get the same color 3 times in a row, it kills you.
Yeah.
And then he has a roulette that starts spinning and hourglasses that pop up, and he does insta-kill abilities while these hourglasses are up. So you have to run around and kill all the hourglasses, but then when the roulette stops, when all the hourglasses are dead, you have to not be on the section of the platform that the roulette stopped on. Otherwise you
Man,
die.
I have to go in and do this.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
And then and then there's a few other insta-kill mechanics. If you look at him when he gets an eyeball on his head, he'll put doom on you, and you have to run to a light source if you get it. And if you can't make it to one, you die in 10 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And then he spawns circles on the ground that will only trigger their effects if a even number of people are in the fire one, and it'll do a ton of damage, and a doom one where if a multiple of 3 people are inside the circle after a very quick amount of time, it will just kill everybody inside the circle.
Incidentally, the groups naturally divide into threes because there's a set of 3.
Mm-hmm. So a multiple of 3 cannot be standing in the circle. So if there's 9 people in it, all 9 people die. So this boss is he's less fun than you would think because he just dies so quickly. But if he was a longer fight, I could see how this was great content back in the day.
It was gear appropriate back in the day.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
he's like item level 90 or something. I think I can't remember offhand.
I think he's 110.
Is he?
He's
Well,
either
that
90
mean-
or
that-
110.
That still means that everybody has a full set of gear at that level, even
Yeah.
if they're fresh players nowadays.
So yeah, you have that one, and then you have the next boss doesn't have anything of note. I can't even remember. Oh, the 5-headed dragon. The 5-headed dragon only has one mechanic that's worth noting. You have to pass tethers around, where you get tethered to a light orange ball that does damage to you, and you have to go stand on somebody else and give them the tether. It doesn't matter who, and then they have to give it to somebody, and it does less damage every time you pass it. Everything else about him is pretty generic tank and spank. The third boss is my favorite boss in the game so far. So when I went into this dungeon, this boss is divided into 3 roles. Each group takes a role. Group A handles the boss and the ads. My instruction as a member of Group B was, Group B, you get Vord.
Ah, well, gee, thanks.
That is what chat said. So he's a doggo. He's Cerberus, the doggo. And so first he chalks up a hairball like a cat. And you don't kill the hairball. Group B runs into the hairball and gets shrunk because touching hairballs makes you tiny.
Because reasons.
And then Cerberus will eventually puke on the floor. And then,
He is a doggo.
all doggos, all of Group B has to go run over to the puke because the doggo will eat the puke. And then you wind up in Doggo's stomach.
But why?
And
You just know this encounter was written at like an after work drinking party.
Yeah.
And so you have to bust open his stomach ulcers to make him get stunned so he can be chained back up by Group C, and he'll throw you back up. And Group 3 handles chains, where he breaks out of chains, and that's when he does the throw up stuff, and you gotta rechain him back up. So, it's a very fun encounter, especially if you're Group B.
Yeah. Someone basically just said, my dog ate his own sick. Let's make a fight out of that.
Yeah, somebody came into the office angry at their dog with that one.
Yeah.
So, very nasty fight, but a very fun fight. And the last one is just the last boss of Final Fantasy III. Cloud of Darkness is back, and you have to do a whole bunch of mechanics, but the one that wiped us the one time we did it, she'll spawn 6 circles in random places on the platform, and if all of them don't have at least one person in them, it's basically a raid wipe.
Joy.
So what inevitably happens is one of two scenarios. Either everybody congregates in all the ones that are close to the boss and nobody sprints to the ones in the back, and those don't get soaked and so everybody dies. Or you have everybody sprint to the ones in the back because they assume nobody's going to get those, and nobody's near the ones on the sides to go get those. So it's a bit of a clown show. But we wiped it 1% one time. But otherwise, she's just a whole lot of don't stand in the yuck.
The Don't Stand in the Yuck is a nice basic game mechanic that everyone can get their head around. Well,
Yeah,
you'd think so anyway.
Anytime a guide starts detailing the yuck, I just skip it.
Yeah, it's gunk on the floor, don't stand in it.
Don't stand in the yuck.
Every now and again,
there's always those occasional fights where it's mandatory to stand in the yuck.
yeah, it's the one fight that says do stand in the yuck.
Yeah. So there's that one. So I really enjoyed the last raid. World of Darkness is a huge step up, and the fact that people can't outgear it as hard means the mechanics still matter.
Yeah.
You can't live through the raid wipe mechanics. They're going to kill you. So
I love
It's
how
still-
the old raid content and the old group content is still viable to be played in Final Fantasy. Like wow.
yeah.
You do
Yeah.
have the opportunity to use eye level sync as well if you want to play it legit because you've got a group that you've formed in advance.
Which is real nice. I
Which
like
is
those
very,
features.
very nice. So it's you got 4 expansions of content now?
Yeah. Tons of stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I'm still talking about stuff I did in post Realm Reborn. I haven't even gotten to the Heavensward stuff yet.
And none of it's redundant.
Yeah. So the content itself, the group content, I thought was fairly interesting. The dungeons in post Realm Reborn they're still finding their feet. They're getting somewhere, but they hit it off. I think they finally figured it out with Keeper of the Lake. I really liked Keeper of the Lake.
Mm-hmm.
That was really freaking hard when it was current.
It was tough.
Like a group that wasn't going to completely clown it up was like pure gold.
Yeah. The big problem in Keeper of the Lake, it's the second boss because he's just a clown show. The airship that covers the entire arena in yuck.
Honk honk.
That's probably I've probably wiped on that boss as much as the other bosses combined in there.
Yeah, Midgård Stormer or whatever. Big Dragon Man. He is all on the tank, so if the tank watched the video, you're fine.
I think you can fail as a function of time if the DPS is too low.
Yeah, I think he does have a time gate on him.
Because I know that I've failed while not making any mistakes before.
Yeah. So as long as and nowadays with the gear level, as long as your DPS click the button when the whole platform turns into yuck, and the tank tanks the 2 little dragons in the appropriate locations, you're gonna kill the boss.
Yeah.
The first boss is a funny bird with a gun.
Funny bird with a gun.
That's a way to
I
put
don't
it.
think I've heard it. I don't think I've heard it described like that.
I think it's a completely accurate description. Because he just will call his bird friend to drop canisters all over the place while he's got a gun. And it's just mauling the tank and shooting everybody with it. And he's not a bird man. He's not a beast tribe bird. He's just a bird.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to watch an emotional moment in the game, and you're talking about funny birds with guns. Way to ruin the tone.
That's your own fault for doing story during the show.
Yeah, you'd think I'd have learned by now, but nah.
But yeah, so Funny Birdman is a interesting fight, but unfortunately his main mechanic just doesn't seem to matter that much if you can just run away from the canisters. So that everybody seems to know to do that nowadays. So he's not a big deal to deal with. But I liked Keeper of the Lake a lot. I liked the aesthetic of the dungeon. I liked all the bosses, and that's where they really started to find their feet, I think. So
Well, did you do all of the dungeons? Like, did you do the likes of Pharaoh Sirius in there? Like, I don't even know if they're part of the.
no, I didn't do those.
Yeah, I think they skipped a bunch of them.
I skipped a ton of optional ones just going through the main story.
Did you still have
Some
to
of
do?
them are actually quite good.
Did you still have to do Praetorium and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
that's a story. That's a part of the story.
That's a major
An
part.
arc story.
It is also an enormous clown show.
There's a reason they're called Netflix Roulette.
Yeah. Half the
But,
time, by the
but-
time you load into the dungeon, unless you've got like the top-notch computer and you've got the game installed on an SSD, half the raid's already gone.
Yeah, they people know how to do those real good. Like,
That was all you had on the dungeon roulette for a while.
well, it's all that's in, I think, Story Roulette.
Yeah.
It's Praetorium and Castor Meridium.
No. There's one other.
Judy,
Yeah.
see. Judy Finder.
The one that is the hardest to get in. It was the hardest to get a group for in whatchamacallit, Realm Reborn, back before there was any Heavensward.
Is Chrysalis in there?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a trial now.
Okay.
But what was it called? I have to look it up.
Oh, that's nice.
Where's
The Adventurer in Need icon's actually on the roulette list now.
I'm in a duty, so I can't look it up. But it was called like Cape Westwind or something like that.
Oh
Has-
yeah.
It's a really, really, really short, really, really, really easy one, and it's really hard to get a group for, and not least because oftentimes people would refuse to do it. They would just leave or whatever.
Because people
If
want
they-
to watch the cutscenes.
Well, it's not. There are almost no cutscenes as well. It's a really fast, really easy way to get your tomestones with no effort, but you don't get any XP to speak of from it. So if you are trying to level a character, it's a waste of your main scenario roulette
Oh.
because it has no mobs.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So the Netflix roulette is a thing. I don't remember anything about the stuff in the Netflix roulette, but yeah. And then we have not really much worth talking about in Chrysalis. It's kind of whatever. I know Vol's scared of it, but
Well,
I
I was
just-
traumatized because
Yeah.
that was unspeakably difficult back when I was playing Realm Reborn.
the first time I went through it, we wiped for one reason or another. I forget, but we came back and just bodied it because the echo. And then there's and then the second time we went through it, I was doing it as a dancer, and nobody was killing the void thing, so I just limit broke it and got us out of there. One of the few times I pushed the button as a DPS.
You don't get
In
to
fact,
press
I'd
that
use-
button very often.
Like in general, I don't push that button. I'm scared to push that button because pushing that button at the wrong time will get you called autistic.
Yes.
So I'm scared to push the button. I keep it on the bar. I have to take my hand off the controller and put my hand on my mouse and click.
Yeah.
It is quite rare for someone who's not a DPS to click it, but there are a few situations where you pretty much have to click it.
The real oh crap moments.
Yeah, there are certain mechanics in the game that are also it's ideal to have the tank just get you through them using a limit break, but they are very specific situations. And I have there has been one occasion that I remember a healer salvaged a run that was headed for disaster by doing a level 3 healer limit break just
Yeah.
before everything went completely south.
Which is mass res, everyone's full up, away you go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically raid reset, go.
Yeah, it sounds really powerful when you put it like that. The problem is that if you do that, there are a lot of fights that you will simply fail the DPS check if you do that, because they have balanced them around the DPS using a limit break. But if you've already passed the DPS check phase of the fight, or if such a thing exists in the fight, then the healer can salvage a run using it if things go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Realm Reborn content. I'm glad to be out of that mess, and glad to finally have other stuff to do. I don't feel as compelled to churn through the main story, although I have been, because like I said before, there's one more quest syndrome. I can actually do other crap now. I can do dungeons if I want to again. I'm not pressured to get out of a Realm Reborn.
I challenge you to actually take a break during the climax of the story. I'll give you that. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, so at the end of a Realm Reborn, you do have to watch a movie.
Yes, it's about
Like,
I
40
enjoyed
minutes?
that. I got a drink and a snack, and I sat down and watched it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So Raubon has a certain type of moment, and takes the pocket prints down to half size. That was pretty cool.
To be fair, said Pocket Prince had it coming.
He did. I mean, you're talking to a guy who killed 100 people in the gladiator arena, who is now the sworn person for the Sultana, and you're just mocking her to his face after you've done horrible stuff to him and her. Yeah, you're asking to get cut down to size.
Yeah, like Raubon is one of the biggest badasses in the current storyline. And don't want to piss this guy off.
And now he's down an arm.
And he's missing an arm, but I think that just makes him even tougher.
Yeah, he just gets angrier in order to make up for it.
He had his arm chopped off, and he just gets straight back up and keeps on fighting.
Yeah, his buddy from Final Fantasy XIV Africa, wherever they are, is a real right evil dude. It seems like Ilberd or whatever his name is.
Mm.
I say buddy, but they're not buddies anymore.
No, they are not.
You take somebody's arm off, and bad things happen to you.
Yeah, that's the whole Crystal Braves scenario.
Yeah, Alphino becomes Emono for a while.
He's actually got good reason to be a bit down and questioning himself after that nonsense, though.
It's his own fault because he basically just got too smug about how clever he was.
Yes, he did.
Cautious. It's true that he was fooled. It's true that he was tricked, but he also was not checking to see if everybody was on the level.
Yeah, like getting up towards that part of the story, he's just smug all the way.
He's got the same problem that modern social justice warrior liberal types have, where they just assume people who have agreed to ally with them are telling the truth all the time.
Yeah. It's a shame, actually, if Alisaie was in the story at that point, then she would have smacked him down to size right quick.
Yeah, they're basically, her presence is pretty much necessary to keep Alphino, humble.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're both, Wunderkind, right? Basically. Yeah. And the only person who is any legit competition for the other is their sibling. And she's gone. So he just ends up getting out over his skis all the time without her.
Ends up getting.
I mean, she's a right bitch to deal with a lot of the time, but
yeah, but the two balance each other.
I could get behind the Rambo mentality more than I could Alphino's political schemery.
Because he's bad at it.
I mean, if you're gonna fight him, I mean, you could try the political schemery, and that'll probably get you further. But that just ain't as cool as going Rambo.
Well, the thing is that Alisaie gets out over her skis just as often as Alphino does, except in her case, it usually ends up with her surrounded by monsters and injured.
Yeah. Yes, the ever-loving crap kicked out of her quite a couple of times.
So I still haven't seen her in the story since she was introduced.
She'll turn up again about halfway through.
She'll be back. She appears in Dragon Song, I think.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So yeah. Content from Heavensward time. We move on to Ishgard. Ishgard's a cool place, but it's really confusing to navigate if you're running around it.
It makes a lot of sense if you take a look at the map and zoom it right out of the top story.
Yeah, sometimes. You gotta tell me you know
the hang of it. You spent so much time in Orgrimmar, you should be able to figure out Ishgard. Come on.
Yeah. But it looks like they actually designed the map so much before they designed where the players are going to go. Because they got this nice, kind of heavenly archangel shape to the upper story map.
So...
But it's a pain to navigate.
But, yeah, when I first get there... When I don't know the place and I'm running around, I'll try to get to the tavern from the bottom level and have to run around looking for the stairs up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then realize there was an entrance at the bottom all along that I somehow missed.
Well, admittedly, I'm running around Kugani at the moment, and I'm sick of canals.
But yeah. So, and it's just I'm only showing up there to do main story quests and then leaving to go do them. So I haven't spent a whole lot of time in the city for reasons that you need to be in the city for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Then there's the rest of the dungeons. So let's see here.
Cool.
Some All is the first dungeon I did, and this was a climb to the top of the tower, killing Nidhogg's waifu on the way up. And you kill his waifu, and he gets mad. And none of these fights were particularly interesting. The dinosaur was cool, but he was just cool because he was a dinosaur, not because he had interesting mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had one that looked interesting, but it just didn't matter.
Yeah, I've always found that with that fight. Like there are definitely mechanics there, but they've just done something wrong with the tuning, so it's better to just, zerg them down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't remember much of that dungeon because it just kind of passed over as whatever dungeon. Let's see.
The next progression dungeon is the Airy.
Yeah, and then did that one. Getting people to stand in the poison clouds on the second boss was the most memorable part of that dungeon because me and another guy were telling people that ads are going to spawn.
Did
I
they
was standing
listen?
in one. No.
No.
So it was me stopping one puddle, and I don't know how we got a second puddle. I thought there was only supposed to be one, but nobody was in that one. So ads are coming while I'm stuck in the other puddle and can't do anything because if I move, even more ads will come.
And it's one of those fights where it's stand in the poop.
Yeah, so this was a stand in the yuck fight. Nidhogg himself had a big bunch of buster attacks and raid wipe and stuff, but it's nothing I really hadn't seen by this point, so he didn't really stick out. But I remember his fight being cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool fight.
And
then after that, the Vault, the fight through the church.
This is the only dungeon I did as a DPS. And this is the first dungeon I did as a dancer.
So you don't remember much about the dungeon because you were trying to figure out how to work the dancer.
Oh no, I remember the dungeon because I figured out real quick, you do not dance and step right at the start of a pool.
Oh yeah, because there's tons of mobs and they're always loose because they're running towards you.
Yeah, because ambush.
Yeah, so they would ambush the tank and he'd get aggro, and then I would dance, step, pull aggro on every single one of them and get squished.
Yeah, so I have the same problem with the machinist where like you see this big group of mods and it's tempting just to pop your hypercharge and start auto crossbowing like crazy. Don't do that. You explode.
So learned how to play dancer in this dungeon. It's the only one I've done as a DPS. And the last boss gave me flashbacks to that boss we did during the Rantathon last time.
Oh no.
With the marching mummies.
Oh no. Because yeah, he does that with the suits of armor.
The chess pieces.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other bosses didn't have any mechanics that are worth noting, at least as a DPS. When I'm a DPS, I pay less attention in general.
Yeah, a lot of dungeons, like boss 1 and 2 will have one interesting mechanic, and boss 3 will have usually 2 or 3.
Yeah. So yeah, I liked the last boss. The first boss was a tank and spank. There was nothing about that boss. Don't stand in the yuck. One guy's going to get stunned and pummeled really hard, and tank and spank the rest of it. Like, it's a total gimme fight.
Yeah.
The second boss had portals that you had to not get knocked into, and that was the entirety of his mechanics that were relevant anyway. He might have had one more, I forget. But the last boss had a whole bunch of crap going on. Like, he had the marching chest walls and chains where he chained two people together and they had to run away from each other while also dodging the chest walls. And
yeah, and that got messy.
And a whole bunch of orbs spawned around the room that you had to kill before he got his F you, you're dead mechanic off.
Yeah. It was a great
So he had a lot
fight.
of cool. He had a lot of cool stuff. And then
why do these crabs have tails?
Does your crab not have a tail?
Well, these crabs do. I'm gonna kill it and find out.
But yeah. So there was that one. Then there was Bismarck. Bismarck is
All hail the Sky Whale.
yeah. I was jumping between All Hail the Sky Whale and the Eternal Whale in Shadowverse. The Eternal Whale is a card that's a really chunky, heavy, expensive Dragoncraft card that when it dies, it puts 4 copies of itself back into your deck that all cost 0.
I see.
It's a total gimmick card for a gimmick deck, but it's really funny, and it looks just like Bismarck. So, it's a big white whale, but, big white whales all kind of look the same. This one just has wings.
Yeah.
But, his fight was fun. Having people... I don't know why nobody was clicking anything. I had to, once again, assume responsibility because I went back to tanking and just do the fight for everybody. There's one other guy clicking harpoons. Nobody was clicking the thing in the center, and I also had to pick up all the ads. So I just had to do this fight for people. So my first impression was a little soured.
I'm trying to remember. Is the click the thing in the center to protect the platform from being hip checked, wasn't it?
Yeah, you gotta wait for him to dip down, and then click the thing in the center to have the shield up long enough to absorb the impact.
Yeah, that was it.
And then when he does his big FU move, that he blasts the whole platform, you click it one last time and he destroys it, and then you just are in a DPS race until he destroys the platform.
Yeah. Oh, which reminds me about an in-joke in Monster Hunter Stories 2. They canonize Plesios hip check.
Oh dear.
Yeah, doesn't it have like some weird name though? Like
Hyperspace Tackle.
Yeah.
Which is the name the fandom gave it. So, yeah, that's been canonized now. Enjoy.
So, yeah.
What is this? More tailed crabs. Why do these crabs have tails? They're not even attached to anything.
What have you got against crab tails?
I mean, if it looked like it was supposed to be there, it would be fine, but they're not. They're just kind of stuck on the carapace.
Is that a problem? They're not like fluffy or something, are they?
They are actually slightly tufted.
Huh.
These are extremely strange, and I don't like it.
So, yeah. One last dungeon to talk about. The Great Google Library, which is the last one I did. I love this dungeon. This is my favorite dungeon I've done so far.
It is great. It is great.
It is a really good dungeon.
So the first my impression of this was I'm very glad I was the tank and had watched the video, because the first boss is just a giant book with a face in it.
Yeah.
And you gotta punch the book, and then the book will close, and you gotta run around behind the book, otherwise you get one shot. And then he spices it up a little bit by adding ice mechanics to the platform when you gotta run around behind the book.
Oh, those ice mechanics were just the worst.
And the whole time, he's got yuck that if you stand in, you get slow and heavy.
Uh-huh.
So, having to dodge
everything in his power to stop you from getting around the book.
Like, nothing this book can do as a regular attack will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But the only danger is falling off the platform.
Okay, what shenaniganery is this?
I
found the Fishman village of the weird puntable catfish people.
I see.
It's actually really, really cool looking. Also, Ninja Turtles.
I see.
Oh, you'll understand when you get to Stormblood. There are literal Ninja Turtles.
I see. I've just been running around that same spot me and Paul were running in circles in at the start. But, yeah. The book. So what happened was the book killed everybody except for me and the healer. So me and the healer had to 2-man the last 50% of this book. And I knew we were in trouble when one of the DPS goes, limit break it. Like the paladin and the healer have a limit break that does damage.
No.
So we just kept on going. At that point, it would have been faster to wipe and get the DPS back, but I think there was an unspoken sense of, we got this, show.
Well, for me, it would have been more like I would have been incensed that he asked for the limit break, and therefore I would want to drag it out as long as possible.
So it's already taken a while. So I'm doing as much sleeps as I can.
Yeah, it's the 2 don't die limit breaks, not the do damage limit break, you muffin.
So yeah, we had that, and then we got to the next.
Problem with that fight is that it's a fight that much like Demon Wall, it shoots danger zones down the road that you stand on, right?
Uh-huh.
Covering certain sections of where you are. The problem with the fight is the worse your latency is, the further you have to run in order to evade a template.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to run out of the center to stop getting hit, you don't have the option of just stopping as soon as you're no longer standing on the area. You have to keep running. And
yeah, otherwise the server might think you're still back in it.
This puts you in way, way higher damage of falling off than you would be otherwise.
It also puts you way deeper into the second blast he shoots.
Yeah. So the odds of you getting hit when you wouldn't normally be hit and of just falling off the edge due to whatever are way, way higher if your latency is higher. So oftentimes people who are dying in that fight, there's not really a lot they can do about it. It's just the way the netcode works is not very friendly to people with bad connections.
Also, the hitboxes on those yucks that add slow are not 100% accurate. They're quite a bit bigger than they appear. You have to take an extra step and a half to get out of it.
Yeah.
I tested this while I was doing it because we were taking 80 years to do this boss. I had time. So I tested how his abilities work quite a bit. The next boss was also a clown show. It was Biblios, the book demon, who is a demon standing on top of a book, not a demonic book.
Again.
So his only real mechanic is he will spawn book 69, oh my, ads all over the room, and you have to kill them, and a little blue orb will follow you if you land the last hit. Now, I'm the tank, the healer's the healer. Neither of us are going to get the last hit. So what happened was the 2 DPS had 2 orbs chasing them around and didn't know what to do with them.
Oh, no.
You're supposed to run them into the boss to knock him off his book so that you can DPS him again.
Yes.
Now, I, being the naive tank I am, and trusting people like an idiot, even though I tell myself never to do this, believed that maybe they would either figure it out or that they knew. No, they didn't. They needed explicit instruction. And I tried to be as nice as I could be. I think you guys need to run the blue orbs into the boss to make him vulnerable again. I type in full sentence structure in chat.
It's reasonably polite. Actually, that's a lot more polite than you probably should have been, but anyway.
Yes. So eventually they figured it out. After I told them.
After you told them.
So this is why you watch a video before you do a dungeon in Final Fantasy XIV, so you don't act like an autist.
I always, whenever I go into a new dungeon, I go to the wiki, and I look at the mechanics, and then I watch the video that's linked there, because the videos that are on the wiki are actually really good. Except when she gets too bogged down on a pun.
Well, that's all YouTube reviewers these days.
Pretty much. Puns above all else. But
I mean, I appreciate it, but sometimes we're just there for the video about what the frack do in the dungeon.
Yeah, most of them, it's just like, quick, short, here's what the boss does. Here's trash. Is anything in the trash? No? Right, it's trash. Boss!
Yeah. And then you have the last boss. Now, I preempted this one by just going ahead and explaining it a la WoW Dungeon style, where you stop at the boss door and just type out the entire strategy for the fight.
Oh, no.
Because I was positive these idiots didn't have a clue what they were doing.
If they
They were
figure
really
out the blue
nice
balls.
idiots. Now, I'll say this about my group. They were incredibly nice idiots. But they were dumb as a bag of rocks. And with enough instruction, they managed to figure out, okay, see the circles around the room? See the circles in the circles? The number of circles in the circles that are lit up indicates the number of people that need to stand in the circle to get it to lock. Otherwise, we're going to spawn ads. And they managed to figure that out. Although one guy stood in one single person circle the entire time, not quite getting it, but he figured it out for the second one.
Okay,
when he
that's
saw
not too
what
bad.
everybody else was doing. So, a little bit, not quite autistic, just didn't quite understand. He doesn't get the full autist label for that because he corrected it immediately.
Yeah, there's something to be said, like, make a mistake, learn from it, move on. It's a very rare skill in MMO dungeons.
Yeah, so we managed to get it all done, and that was a real fun dungeon, and I really liked it. And that's where I'm up to. We've fished Yasholta out of the ether in the live stream, and she's blind now and still hasn't told me about it. But I saw a cutaway with her and her master talking about it.
She gets better.
Compared to future expansions, they really went ham on Heavensward. So you've done 5 dungeons. There are actually 13 more.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, they I don't know why they did so many, but they did an absolute ton. They didn't do as many for Stormblood or for Shadowbringers, but they just did, they just kept making more dungeons for Heavensward.
I'll ride this Manta Ray.
Yeah. So I'm actually having fun with it now. The dungeons are more interesting in general than they were in, I'm not doing Copperbell Mines anymore.
Yes. Copperbell Mines comes up and it's time for a nap.
I tell you what, though, the Heavensward dungeon roulette was a nightmare when Heavensward just came out, because when it came out, there were a grand total of 2 level 60 dungeons.
Both of them a nightmare?
No, it's not that they were a nightmare. It's that they were... Well, you always seem to get Neverreap. And so Neverreap was nicknamed Always Reap. Because that was the only thing that you ever got on the roulette, and everybody ended up spending all their time in Neverreap, and it was just... It's a really boring dungeon. Or, well, at least I felt it was a really boring dungeon. It may not be that it was a really boring dungeon. It may simply be that I had been there so many times. But there are a lot of other dungeons in there. Most of them are quite cool. There are a few blah ones, but most of them are quite cool. Quite a few of them you'll still run into in the story. And there are lots of hard modes. Like there's a hard mode for Emdapur, a hard mode for Feral Sirius, hard mode for Great Google Library, hard mode for Hullbreaker, hard mode for Somal, and there's a few others as well that are story mode ones. Generally speaking, the dungeon quality is very high in Heavensward. I won't miss doing Xelphatol though. If I never have to do Xelphatol again, that will be too soon because I just don't like it very much. But
it could be what's the dungeon that everybody hates in the leveling roulette from OG Final Fantasy?
There's a couple of them.
I don't know particularly which one
you're
referring to. Personally, I hate Thousand Moors. That's my...
Thousand Moors is a nasty one.
That's it. Thousand Moors of Todorok.
Or Wanderer's Palace.
I don't even remember what was in Thousand Moors.
It's just a long tunnel.
Yeah.
A really long tunnel, which goes on and on and on.
I see.
I didn't realize people didn't like Wanderer's Palace, though. I thought people liked Tonberries.
Yeah, no.
I don't like fighting.
It's still one-shot you.
I don't like fighting Tonberries. Tonberries are cute when they're in isolation, but a Tonberry fight is horrifying.
Yeah. Like, Tonberries, whenever they turn up in a Final Fantasy game, they're cute little... like kind of turtle people with a lantern and a knife.
And that knife will one-shot you.
Like, they might stand around and take a few hits for a bit, but eventually they're going to get annoyed and knife you.
They're real accurate with that knife.
They are. So, say goodbye to one of your party members when you annoy it.
Insta-death critical hit to the nads for whatever poor unfortunate soul annoys the Tonberry.
Yes. I remember you go through, at the end, the post-game of Final Fantasy X, there was this dungeon and it was just full of Tonberries. And all you could do was just run away from them. You couldn't fight them. They were,
Oh, man.
fighting a Tonri was a harder fight than fighting the first Aeon. The dark version of the first Aeon.
Yeah. No, Tonberries.
They're a meme.
Yeah. That's pretty much it for my excursions in group content and the likes in Final Fantasy XIV. I've yammered on about it quite a bit, so I think I can leave my experiences there for now and come back with more next week.
Oh, that's where I was supposed to go. Yeah, we might actually have some joint experiences all going to plan.
Yeah, if you can actually get some free time. I messaged, like, the one reply I got from Fern this week was a message in the middle of the week where I'm like, you should come play with me and Abo in the daytime like you used to when you played Minecraft.
That would be nice.
But I knew this was a fool's errand when I sent it, but I sent it anyway, just on the off chance maybe some miracle would happen.
I think he would very much like to sleep at some point.
Sleep would be nice. I haven't been having a whole lot of that either.
Who needs sleep?
When you got Vidya. I don't know where I'm supposed to be going because I'm terrible at navigating.
I'm just trying to make more and more intricate patterns in the Revenant Toll Aethysite.
Yeah. I'm in an entirely new area. It is at the bottom of the ocean. Weird Ninja Turtles around the place. And I gotta go beat something up.
So yeah. I am unfortunately gonna not be the slowest person in Final Fantasy XIV. I've been playing this game on and off since A Realm Reborn.
Likewise.
And I have not made it past A Realm Reborn
Honestly,
until this week.
After playing this for a bit, I'm kind of sad I didn't get a chance to at least look at the 1.0 content. Or particularly, I wasn't around for the Calamity when it happened.
There's a decent video of it I found where I watched a bunch of stuff happen. And it documents a bunch of the memes that came out of it and the stuff people did. But it's like the Anchorage event, right? It is a one-time event that happens that you remember because everything is terrible while it happens and you look back with fond memories.
Yeah. And it's something that's so very, very cool that happened that is not going to happen again.
Yeah, it gives me the same vibes as the AQ event.
Yeah. Like, this is an event which the world literally blew up. I mean, they created a full in-game event, lore and all, to destroy version 1.0.
Yeah, Yoshi P kind of went full retard with it.
They pulled the plugs on the servers the moment Bahamut's fireball hit the ground. That's how deep into it they got.
So yeah.
It's one of those events that I think it's one of those gaming moments you just had to be there for.
Yeah. But, yeah, you can't be there for every video game event like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sad I missed it. Like, we were still there for, like, the AQ stuff.
I remember AQ. That was a mess.
Yeah, that's stuff most people haven't done.
Servers are not supposed to make creaking noises.
Oh, man, the Anubis ass everywhere.
Oh, so many Anubis ass.
As I've mentioned on the show many times before, I remember it as the day the Horde and the Alliance united to stop Sodge getting his Black Kiraji resonating crystal.
That's what you get for being an ass bag.
When literally everybody on the server hates you.
I would have hated to be in the server, at the actual server room for that, because alright, is it going to catch fire? Is it going to catch fire?
The GMs had to reset Moonglade like 4 times.
Yeah. Alright.
But yeah, there's stuff like that with them screwing around on Final Fantasy XIV too, where they would spawn a jillion giant Malboros, the last boss of Aram Vale, and just dump him in the in Ul'dah, and there's just a train of him going through.
Because everyone loves Marlboros.
I used to smoke those.
I mean, they're about as healthy.
So yeah, that's been my adventures in Final Fantasy XIV. Might have more next week.
All right, so I just got a new chess piece from a Ninja Turtle.
Restoration.
Equip. Boop. How's it look? I don't know. Because I'm stuck in the cutscene.
I don't know.
That's better.
Somebody's
What?
playing music in Revenant Toll again.
Which anime is it from?
I don't know. It sounds like a creepy waltz.
Huh. I just got what can only be described as a Final Fantasy wetsuit top. And on that interesting note, we should take a break.
We should. Also, just to augment my last comment in live show chat, there's Michael Jackson also dancing in front of this girl.
Oh, the guy with the leopard print pants and the top hat?
No, the full white suit Michael Jackson with the white gloves.
I see. So shenanigans are in full force in Limsa as usual.
Oh no, this is in Revenant's Toll.
Oh, okay, that explains it then.
So different Michael Jackson.
Different Michael Jackson. The one in Limsa is always there wearing the leopard print thong.
I see. All right. We will return, folks. Here's some music. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Yes. I'm underwater.
Yeah, I can't follow Fern where he's at now. He has gone beyond my reach.
Yeah, I'm swimming with the fishes. Apparently I've just unlocked an entirely new system, so there we go.
So, we have an email.
Who wants it? It's only a short one.
Someone else can read it then because I'm currently in a scrap with a Colossus.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Oh boy, Serathus, I'm banned from it. I'm breaking your rule, Serathus.
Oh no.
You get one. Because he said I'm not allowed to read them anymore. Dear No Excuses. Quake, not Doom, but because all the exciting Doom stuff is coming out at the end of August. So I'll be writing about the new episode for the Quake Remaster. Because for some reason Bethesda remastered Quake 1 with a few graphic options, added the 2 expansion episodes and the bonus old school episode. And made a brand spanking new series of levels that I have to say look amazing. This time, the maps are scattered across very short thematic episodes. I'd give bonus points for Dimension of the Blacksmith because it looks like Undead Burg from Dark Souls 1. Other than that, there's nothing new. Weapons, enemies, textures, all the same. Nothing much else to mention. Next week should be about Hedonic 2, Thick Orc Waifu, and possibly Ashes 2063 Episode 2, the best Mad Max game. Best Mad Max game I've seen in ages. Oh, and Psychonauts 2 or something. It's from our good buddy Serathus. Thank you for the email, Serathus.
I used to love the original Quake. I played that endlessly, particularly the first episode, because that's the way shareware games worked. Yeah, you good. The first episode was really good.
The only reason I played it endlessly is because I kept getting lost.
Yeah, there's also that. It would have been nice, however, if they discovered, a fourth colour. Because you had brown, dark green, and grey. That was the entire colour palette. Maybe a splash of red in there.
Maybe some blues.
Not really.
You're supposed to add the red yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of how it usually went. But yeah, because it was shareware, all the really good content was in the first episode, and after that, well, they had your money, so who cares? Incidentally.
Yeah, it also had what I believe to be one of the most disappointing final bosses of all time.
It took me a while to figure it out because this was before the days of internet guides.
It was nonsense.
Yeah, you had to wait for this spiky ball to travel all the way around the arena, and when it passed through the boss, you jumped in, and the boss died because telefrag. You killed the boss.
Remember telefragging?
Yeah. You killed the boss with obscure bits of gaming trivia. There you go. That used to be a big thing. I think it is still a big thing in the Unreal game that's coming up. That's been out for a while.
It's always been important in Unreal. Like I had a friend who was in fact very, very good at killing people using just the translocator.
If you can pull it off, it's an impressive way to kill someone.
He could just use it as the only weapon he used in a stage, and he could win with it.
That just says hacks.
Because it's always an instant kill. It doesn't matter what armor they've picked up or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are good enough to... Yeah. If you can lead with your shot perfectly and land that translocator beacon and then hit the right click, they're dead. End of story.
Mm-hmm. You had to get your timing perfectly right to do it, though. So, yeah.
You played a lot of Unreal Tournament, so...
Yeah, I actually, as much as I played the first Quake, I haven't played any Quake games since. I think I may have played a little bit of Quake 3 and got bored like 5 minutes in. Because I think, if I remember, Quake 3 starts you off by just walking down a dark corridor. And that's it. But,
the last Quake I played was the 360 3D Quake.
63D Quake? It was on 3D? On the 360 would have been...
I don't remember. Was Quake 3 on?
I think it was, but I think you might be thinking Quake 2. I think that was on 360.
They put that on the 360?
Yes.
Quake 2's ancient.
Quake 2 is.
Quake 2, isn't that like 90s?
Let me have a look. I will ask the internet. Let's see. Which game was where? Let's see. Quake 2. Does it actually say what console was on? No, because why would they put something useful like that? Let's see. Oh dear. I'm not sure what that was. Something went jiggling across my screen. Yeah, that's a useful bit of information that is not here. How about that? Anyway. Yeah, the original one was on the or is on the Xbone, but not...
Might have been
classic
Quake 3.
Xbox. Must have been Quake 3 then, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played a Quake game.
It's just a 360. Was the 360 really all that long ago? I'm not sure I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Quake 2 was on the 360.
It's so old. It's like, isn't it? It's like 1997 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Whereas, yeah, the
Gotta be kidding me.
360 was mid-2000s. So there was like 10 years of difference between it appearing on console, of appearing at all, and appearing on the 360.
It came out in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
That is over a decade and a half old.
Yeah. What is that? That is an otter wearing a hat. I want one. So, thanks for the email, Sarah. I just got distracted by an otter wearing a hat. I don't know what Hadon 2 or Thick Orc Waifu is.
Hedon's quite a well-known total conversion of Doom.
Ah, right.
I don't know a great deal about it other than it's sort of like, I think it's fantasy themed.
Okay.
I think it's appears as a standalone on Steam, but I'm not sure. I don't remember.
It might be worth a look later. So, yeah. If you email next week, then I can probably agree or probably totally disagree with you about Psychonauts 2. So, we'll see how we go.
I just don't want to give Schaefer any money, personally.
That's why I'm going through Game
I
Pass.
just kind of resent him. Like, for existing.
He did
Like,
not
after-
endear himself to a lot of people.
The Broken Age was the last straw.
Yeah.
Like, he just showed his thoroughgoing incompetence and total disdain for the people that supported him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just because he's made a couple good games in the past doesn't mean he's capable of actually managing a project and doing it well.
You hear that, Molyneux? Although Molyneux seems to have crawled under a rock since Goddess.
Speaking of people who promised the world and then crawled under a rock, whatever happened to Will Wright?
I don't know. Spore happened. Was he involved in SimCity 2006? Which was appallingly bad. Let me see, what's he actually doing these days?
The only reason I remembered Spore is because Fauna played it, which she said was totally not a cursed game. She referred to it as.
That's a pretty accurate description. As much.
She also had to censor the ever living heck out of it because they would make baby, and she would have to move her head in the way.
But they don't really make baby. They dance, and then the mother lays an egg.
But that doesn't sustain the gag, does it?
No, it does not. So, as flawed as Spore was, I still like a lot of what they attempted to do. Even though right at the time when I was first playing it, I played it for like 10 hours straight. Back on the release day.
Well, the sad thing about it is that its most legendary feature was its DRM.
Yeah, because it would stop installing after the third. Let me see. Apparently you can be in BattleBots for a little bit. Post-Max's career, 2011. On the board of directions for Linden Labs, the people who made Second Life.
Ooh, gross.
And now he's working on a mobile game.
Turned into a furry.
Furry or possibly worse in Second Life. You can be as degenerate as you want.
You know, I have a theory that Tumblr grew out of a Second Life community.
Or the other way around. And growing is not the word I'd use.
Honestly, I think of Tumblr as being sort of amateur hour degenerates compared to Second Life, who are sort of like high-tier professional degenerates.
Yeah. So, as of 2018, he's working on a mobile game called Proxy. Which not a whole lot is known about, so...
Just from you saying that, I get Goddess vibes.
Yeah, so is he just following the same arc that Molyneux did?
It could be.
He made couple of really, really good games. Then he made a couple of okay games. And now he's going to scuttle his entire career with a terrible, terrible mobile game. Although, to be fair, Molyneux never did dip his toes into pure degeneracy.
What about Richard Garriott? Is he working on anything?
Presumably he's in a padded cell these days. Let's see, Richard Garriott.
I bought his MMO.
Yeah, it only lasted a few
Tabula
years.
Rasa.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I've shown you all the box before.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I remember the dumpsters being full of them.
Let's see. He wants to go to space.
Space. I thought he did go to space.
Oh no! Currently, as of February this year, he's at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So
Is he doing anything there?
Presumably trying to sell his blood to tentacled monstrosities. He's put a geocache down there and recorded another sci-fi film.
Well, I guess he's living his best life.
This made him the record holder for both altitude and depth records for doing these activities. So, go Lord British, you insane person.
Traditionally, people say shine on, you crazy diamond.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So, that was a tangent. So, let us look at a bit of news.
We've got some news?
I mean,
Not
we didn't...
much of it.
The big game show happened this week, and I can't care. Nothing interesting happened.
Even if something interesting did happen at Gamescom, I just wouldn't believe these mofos if they came out and announced the greatest thing in the world.
It's lies. Pretty lies.
This is a real problem. I can't get hyped for anything anymore because people have lied to me too much.
Mm-hmm.
Not that any of the ideas they're pitching are original anyway.
Yeah. So, instead of talking about that, we're just going to pick a couple of little nuggets. Yeah, why don't go...
If you really want to push for content, me and Vol could give our opinions on the current HoloLive generation.
Please no.
I haven't watched enough of them, to be honest. Although I would venture to say I have watched enough of Sana to be done with her.
That's 5 seconds of Sana is enough to be done with her.
Ish, that good.
She is insufferable.
Yeah. Speaking of insufferable, this Suyu woman is a nasty piece of work.
Good looking, though.
Yeah, but in the same way that a shark is, I guess. She's She's just nasty. Horrible. Really, really horrible person.
Yeah, it's heavily implied that she's got some kind of tragic backstory, but she spends too much time being nasty for you to actually feel sympathy for her.
There's the crazy face. Yeah, like, she spent an awful lot of time just standing on Gotsetsu's head.
Yeah, she's definitely got a chip on her shoulder,
Mm.
but it's not really that clear why. I didn't play enough of the story to find out. I think that you get a bit more of her background elucidated after the main scenario is over, but I only finished the main scenario. I didn't play any further.
Mm. So yeah. Do you want to hit the Blizzard pinata again and see what falls out?
I mean, we can. I heard they tried to destroy some evidence or something.
Yeah, that's illegal.
Yeah, but it's just a fine, I think.
Yeah,
I think it depends on
Who
the
cares?
situation, but yeah.
Who
For a
cares?
company, it's just a fine. So, I mean, if you know you're going to get completely shit canned by the state for what you've done, but you can just pay a fine to destroy all evidence that you ever did it, you might as well just pay the fine. Because this is what justice looks like, apparently.
The thing is, though, is if this is stuff that's been uploaded to the internet at some point, then the autists
Well,
will find it.
This will be like internal emails and stuff, probably. Things like
Probably,
that.
yeah.
The evidence that they canned investigations rather than actually carrying them out, that type of thing.
But yeah, again, all it needs is one person on the inside to just save a copy of that email somewhere.
Well, that's assuming they even exist anyway. They could just be lying.
Yeah, there's also that. But we've also got McCree from Overwatch being renamed.
So McCree was named after one of the devs, and McCree was in the Crosby suite.
Crosby.
And that's a no-no, so we got to rename McCree to something else. Presumably make him gay or chop his nuts off.
Presumably on the way, but yeah, that's gonna happen. So I don't know why. Like when they named him Jesse McCree, they were reaching around for a good cowboy name, and they just had one on hand. It did involve said staff member signing the rights to his name over, though.
That sounds like something that I would just never do just to be safe.
Yeah,
This is sort of like giving a lock of your hair to a witch doctor.
you just don't do it.
So yeah, he's gonna be. Do we have anything on what he's gonna be renamed as? I haven't seen it.
Not as yet. That's still being workshopped.
He'll be named.
I've heard that their casters have stopped using his name already, and they're
Yeah.
just calling him Cowboy or something.
Or High Noon.
Yeah. It also
That's
means
He's
they're
the
going to have to go
character
back and...
that just says that all the time, is he?
It's High Noon. Yeah.
Yeah. But it means they're going to have to go back and re-record a whole bunch of voice lines too, so have fun.
Implying that anybody cares because nobody plays that sodding game.
Because it's been maintenance mode for forever, basically, now.
Except they don't have the staff to not delay the sequel, so...
So yeah, there was the spurgery earlier on this week of the rumoured shutdown of Blizzard, but nobody believed that at the time, so that was basically YouTubers milking it for content.
Yeah, I would not trust the YouTubers with this topic in particular, more so than even other topics. Just because they're all on the side of, oh, Blizzard definitely did this defined bad thing that we totally know happened, when they don't have a fracking clue who's did what.
Well, what I'm suspicious of is, like, will they get a taste for the idea of creating their own rumors so that everybody can cover it and churn out a bunch of content?
Games journalists certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying is that there's been an awful lot of new media types tooting their own horn about how they're alternatives to the mainstream, and as far as I'm concerned, that status has a shelf life, and eventually they just become the mainstream, and they will be vulnerable to all the exact same corruptions.
And I've noticed actually as well that audiences for these people are very, very fickle. As soon as they start taking a turn that the audience doesn't like, that audience is gone.
That you can tell when their star is about to run out. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of what all of them do as soon as you can tell when an alternative content creator is about to go down the toilet.
Apology videos?
But first, let's talk about today's sponsor, Nord Shadow Legends VPN.
No.
No, you don't have much of a choice about that these days, because you never know when your videos are going to get completely shit canned by YouTube for no reason.
Yeah.
And if you can like have your revenue stream and therefore your wages for the week just sort of vanish if for some reason the algorithm changes and nobody sees that you even made any videos.
Yeah,
There's a
YouTube
lot
runs
that
on.
can go wrong.
Yeah, YouTube runs on basically black magic at this point. Nobody knows how any of it works, and all it needs is not even a person, a bot, to look at your content, and it realizes that at some point you played one music note that was similar to another music note, and claims you're competent. It just goes poof for no reason.
It's not just that though. It's like you can, if you say make a video that's like 1 second longer than the standard deviation of video lengths that fall within this standard deviation of viewing times, they may just decide to downrank it on the algorithm, and then nobody will know you made it, even though it's out there and it's along with all your other videos.
Yeah.
The big
And heaven forbid you've ever said anything controversial before.
Yeah, the biggest problem is their closed caption auto detection system.
Oh, where it'll automatically generate the closed captions and then take offense to the random things it's generated?
Yeah, you remember the Naga debacle for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Those damn
So
Naga.
there's so many reasons why your content on YouTube can go poof that it just makes sense to get private sponsors. Although,
Guess so,
let us
but
talk
it just-
about NordVPN.
there
Not NordVPN.
There are certain
Raid Shadow Legends.
certain companies are always willing to sponsor anybody, and it just so happens that you see those ones all the time because they will take anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I guess so. It's just, unless you're internet historian, I just start cringing whenever I hear Raid Shadow Legends or NordVPN.
Admittedly, I cringe at during the Internet Historians one as well, but for a different reason.
Raycon good.
Raycon
good.
Oh,
Yes.
see, that is how you make a memorable ad.
I think he said his goal was to make it so that every one of these open sponsor companies would not employ him anymore, and for some reason they keep asking him to make more videos.
Well, Raycon certainly does. He thought he'd scared them off the first time, but no, they came back.
Raycon good, Wires bad. It shows Raycon literally killing people.
He had the NordVPN mascot murder his wife or something like that.
Yeah, it's like...
And yet NordVPN came back. Why? What is going on?
He probably made a whole lot of sales with that ad.
But so yeah, I can usually pick. I wasn't actually being, stupid earlier. An apology video is usually the good sign that a content creator is on their way out.
Well, I think that's a sign of a human being whose integrity is on the way out.
Mm.
Like there are good reasons to apologize for certain things, but almost none of those occur on the internet.
Yeah. There are definitely times to apologize, but when someone takes offense to your content, it's not one of them. Unless you do something like really horrible.
If you are making a public apology on the internet on YouTube, this is probably not one of those legit situations where you need to own up to something. Like when people get things wrong and they do apologies, normally the sincere people will just tack on a note to the front of their next video rather than making a song and dance about it so that everybody knows what a contrite person you are.
Yeah. He's like, oops, we done goofed. Sorry about that. Or this is a correction. We said this wrong fact. Here's the correct fact. Off we go.
Like, apologies are not supposed to be content.
No, and they're not supposed to take half an hour.
Especially monetized.
And there's also like a particular style with particular body language that appears in all such apology videos. It's like they act in certain ways, they say certain things, they speak certain phrases. Like there's sort of like a standard template apology that always gets done for these things. And so it always comes off as completely insincere.
Yeah.
But none of them seem to realize that they sound completely insincere.
So yeah, that's one of the signs. But yeah, we've all got our own as to when is a good time to step away from a YouTuber or a content creator. Raid Shadow Legends is another one, however. Because I mean,
I'm willing to tolerate a certain amount of Raid Shadow Legends, but if you actually claim that you personally play it, then
well, that's
then I no longer believe you.
That claim is actually in the brief.
Yeah, but there are some people who manage to find ways to avoid actually making it.
Yeah, they step around it nicely.
And because they'll take practically anybody, they don't check very hard for starters, and secondarily, they aren't really that concerned even if you don't follow their ad copy perfectly.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's those who just follow the brief and they'll claim that they play it. There's a couple who actually play it.
If they do that, then the odds on that just means that they're willing to lie to their listeners.
Yeah.
It's not really a good look.
It's not, is it? So that's another red flag is too much Raid Shadow Legends ads. Sometimes you just got to get your ad money. So a little bit's all right. All right,
I believe the guys that say that they use the Ridge wallet, but I don't really believe the guys that say they play Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the Raycon people, because those actually do look like a decent product.
Honestly, the reason why I don't trust them is because they have got these ads, and the more I hear them, the less I trust the product. That's a perverse way of looking at it, and I'm not saying it's logical, but that's my gut feeling.
It does make a certain degree of sense.
Every time something is advertised, every time something is shilled to me, I sort of trust it a little bit less, because there's some mindlessly optimistic part of me that figures that if the thing was really as good as all that, word of mouth would have reached me by now on its own.
Yeah, that's why I bought Jabba wireless earbuds instead of Raycon.
Yeah, although I do hear people talking about the quality of Raycons outside of ads as well. So,
well, the other thing is that if they were sold it by the ad, then they've got that bias where they have to validate their decision, and so they're more likely to talk about it being good.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole sort of meta dimension to advertising that makes me paranoid.
So yeah. What other news alerts do we have?
You posted most of the other ones.
Yeah, a little nugget that actually did come out of the games show. I can't even remember what it's called for a reason. Monster Rancher 1 and 2 getting a modern launch on Steam. These games are weird.
You ever watch a TV show?
Oh, the nightmares!
But I don't have an optical drive.
Yeah.
This thing used the optical drive in some weird way, didn't it?
It did. I can't remember exactly what. Wasn't
scan cards
or something?
It would load the game into the RAM, or at least as much of the game as needed to be loaded into the RAM, and then you would take the game disc out of the PlayStation, and then you would put in any other disc, and it would sample the data and use that as a seed for creating a monster.
That was it, yeah. So, aside from, they've only got maybe 30 odd monsters. Most of them have really awful names. and their mascot is basically a giant eyeball with teeth.
He's yellow, too,
He's a-
just to make it even worse.
Yeah, yellow eyeball with teeth. In the anime, he never shut up. And he was a pure nightmare fuel.
I don't remember anything about the TV show other than I watched it a lot because it came on before Digimon sometimes.
Did you watch the sub or the dub?
It's on television. What do you think?
In that case, your ears too were bleeding.
Like, I watched it as a kid.
Yeah.
I never saw it at all, so
The voice acting was just atrocious. So, yeah, I've kind of played these games. I had some fun memories with them. Just because of how absolutely insanely weird they are. Like, one of the monsters is just the monolith. Pure black rectangular. That's a monster. Someone really phoned it in that day. But they've got a really cool merge system where you breed two monsters together to get a unique-ish kind of crossbreed between the two. And some of them are just recolors, but others usually get an extra bit of flair in the process, for better or for worse. So yeah, if you want a weird game, there you go.
Found a picture of the VHS tapes for the anime
Why?
and their cover. I'll post it later.
VHS tapes.
This was the VHS
Oh yeah,
tape
this is
cover.
the VHS days.
I wonder how many people alive today have never seen a VHS.
Quite a lot, I'd say.
I find it quite ironic that a series about abusing optical drives had a VHS release.
It's also worth noting that pretty much every VHS that is in existence, VHS tape, has demagnetized.
The thing is that DVDs didn't exist back then.
Mm-hmm.
The only format which was on optical drive were Laserdisc and VCD. So it's not really that ironic. It only seems ironic in retrospect because we've had DVDs and higher resolution formats for so long now. But when that came out, those things didn't exist. It was just getting towards the end of the lifespan of the PS1.
It was on
I say
DVD
PS1
and
because
VHS.
the PS1 was there. Well, I mean, they probably released the DVD later.
Yeah.
But the DVD was not really that much of a thing because nobody could afford a DVD player.
Who read those tutorials? I've forgotten how to dive. That. So that's just a nugget. I don't think I'd really want to talk about Epic Games peeing on historical literature.
What'd they do this time?
What?
Actually broadcasting Martin Luther King's speech in Fortnite.
Oh, that's not literature.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean, though.
So, I mean, we can. I mean, the irony here is that they don't believe a word of what Martin Luther King Jr. is saying. They, in fact, believe the exact opposite.
Well, they're just going to do the same thing that they always do, which is they pretend to listen to dark-skinned people because they think that makes them virtuous. They have a zero concern for what is actually being said.
Which also means that because this is in Fortnite, people are going to be throwing tomatoes and things at this.
It's going to be great.
Oops. I gotta go find how to dive again because I didn't read the tutorial.
No, I don't really have any particular attachment to Martin Luther King. This isn't part of my heritage.
He's a part of my, not just my regional, but my state history. But I do not like the boy.
I don't like him because he was a reverend and yet he denied the divinity of Christ, therefore he's a heretic.
I have a much more petty reason for not liking the boy, and that's that every single road called Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue have increased to such number that there is you have no idea what somebody's telling you when they say get on MLK.
It depends on which city you're in.
And the other reason is every single road named after MLK is full of degenerate I'm being very, very careful.
Let's just say that the crime rate there is unusually high.
Yes.
I see.
You will get stabbed, mugshot, or all of the above.
Right.
Possibly at once, but not necessarily in that order.
Yeah,
Right.
these areas lead to or are just crime-ridden cesspits. So
that's also a thing.
You
apparently.
can use your imagination as to why that might be.
Oh boy.
Poor
This
Fern.
is why Fern didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to pee on Fortnite for a bit. Because that's always fun. And right.
Well, we know that Epic will do anything for attention, and I've heard that their financials not looking so good.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're starting to realize why Steam takes the cut it does, and they're starting to realize maybe we shouldn't be paying $1 gazillion for all these exclusives and then not put a shopping cart in our store.
It's
Yeah,
unnecessarily difficult.
I don't remember much about the details, but it's basically, it sounds like things are just not breaking even for them. Like they didn't get the miraculous success that they just assumed that they were entitled to, and launching this whole lawsuit debacle is not helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've just been like a teenage girl with her daddy's credit card.
And
If
they didn't win a lot of goodwill with the Among Us thing either.
No, I think if their press at the start wasn't quite so awful, like when they first came up, it's because of we're going to start stealing all these games for exclusive to our platform only. That's not how you get people to your platform. That's how you annoy people.
Yeah, but it's not that they didn't stop there. They progressed to now we will just lift concepts from your games wholesale and implement them in our games without ever talking to you about it.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I know that there's a lot of competition for most evil game company right now, but you aren't actually obliged to participate in that Olympic event.
No. Yes, being nominated is not a badge of honor. Alright, what else we got? Yeah, wanna talk about Pokemon Go?
So this has been a story that's been brewing on and off for a few days or a few weeks now. Basically, what happened was during the COOF, Pikaman Go decided to increase the radius around nodes that you could interact with them because of social distancing.
Mm-hmm. This happened to also have the benefit of making the game infinitely more playable.
Yeah. So this was especially good for people in rural areas or not. Yeah, so people like where I travel to and the rural side of the county that I live on and Fern's middle of nowhere mining town in the bush. You could actually get to a node.
Yeah.
Because we don't have them every 5 feet.
I do now, actually. There's someone in town who's hit level 40, and they just went ham with the nodes a couple of months back.
So yeah, I haven't booted it up in forever. But this increased radius was very popular with this type of person. People that live in areas like me and Fern.
It's not just that. It's also, like, some nodes are just in goofy places where you have to walk into a place where you'd rather not walk to get the node. Or you can get a node with across the street without having to cross the street, get the node and walk back.
Yeah. But, so yeah.
Doesn't that basically pass ownership of nodes on over to certain people who basically live on them, though?
I guess.
If it's a Pokemon Center or gym, I guess.
Like, permanently they can just camp it? Because they live there?
There's no real benefit to doing so. Not like Ingress. Like Ingress,
I guess I didn't play Pokemon Go very long, so I don't really know a lot about how it operates. But I was thinking in terms of Ingress, where there is an awful lot of benefit to doing that.
Yeah, Ingress has every reason in the world, even if it's just because you happen to be right, within a range of a node from home, you can deny that node to the other team permanently. Pokemon Go, you can, if you can reach a gym, you can deny that gym to everyone else just by camping on it. But sooner or later, you need to go out and harvest stops, because if you keep farming the one stop, you get diminishing returns. Whereas if you go out and chain unique stops, you get bonuses.
I see.
So yeah, sitting on one and just spinning it all day won't get you very far.
But yeah. So once the COOF measures started to lighten up a bit, Niantic said, we're gonna cut that COOF bonus back a bit now things are back to normal. You don't give players something and then take it away.
No, there's no world in which that's going to go down well.
Especially when that something makes things better.
So there was a riot on every Niantic and Pokemon Go everything that shouted at them for this, and they finally acquiesced and said, okay, we'll permanently reintroduce the COOF measures.
Yeah, it was the other big benefit was it took away a lot of the guesswork from where you were. Because, SatNav isn't perfect. It gives you kind of an area where you are in, and then it pinpoints it down based on averages.
That's when the satellites can tell where you're at all and don't assume you're 50 houses down.
Yeah, sometimes for me, I could be sitting in one place where I am, and it would still think I'm like 2 or 3 business shops down the street. That's just how it is.
Teleported a lot.
I
feel bad for the GPS in my car because you can see it furiously trying to work out where in Japan I'm driving.
You're in anti-Japan.
Like you're in the kingdom of Princess Cindy.
Ugh.
Don't want to think about her. The gorge will rise.
Next topic.
The rest are all yours. I haven't looked at these.
We want to talk about about the gorge rising, the Saints Row reboot.
No, I think that this is going to be a delightful case of people getting exactly what they deserve in the long term.
Yeah. So now that they've announced, here's the details of what the Saints Row reboot will entail, nobody likes it. The rejection has been universal because instead of gangsters or thugs or the stylish Saints that we got the first 4 games, we've got hipsters.
Yeah, gutless soy boy San Francisco hipsters.
Hang on, I got the perfect screen cap from the trailer.
Yeah.
Hang on. I got you, fam.
So, Saints Row...
In live show chat.
Oh dear, do I dare look? Oh dear. Yeah, that's one of your protagonists or your main cast. You can still customize your player character, but you're still surrounded by hipsters. So, I think part of what made the first 4 games work is the progression of silliness. Like the first game was just a straight Grand Theft Auto clone.
It had quite a bit of silly, but not.
It wasn't over the top. It was about on par with Grand Theft Auto. The second one had quite a bit more silliness, including the poo truck. And then the third went off the rails.
Yeah, the third is when it started to get really, really out there.
Yeah. So you had this progression from, regular thuggy crime, let's take over the city type story, to, fighting, or the president fighting aliens in virtual reality with superpowers.
Makes sense to me.
Makes perfect sense. Also,
but you're definitely at the end of your narrative arc there.
Yeah, and it hit that point where
there's not a step forward from there.
Yeah, and it went out with a bang. Actually, it went out with a kind of novelty rubber chicken noise, but still, the point stands. So you've got this reboot, and it just looks... I don't think there's words to describe how this is.
Well, there are certain words, and I have here an excerpt from an article that was written on the topic I can't credit where it's from because I don't know where it's from. It's a snippet that was just circulating on the internet, but I will read it out so you can get a feel for what is behind all of this. And I will quote from it now. What's probably not returning is the exact tone of humour that players might remember from Saints Row 3 and 4. I remember laughing often at Saints Row the Third when I played it 10 years ago, but it took some Googling to remember just how embarrassingly edgy its writing was. Between memorable set pieces and lovable characters were moments of casual sexism and homophobia within its main cast and beyond, the sort of stuff that I breezed by in all media when I was a dumb 15-year-old. Without getting specific about the series' pasts, studio development director Jim Boone said the Saints Row reboot will bring the series into the 2020s. We love the old Saints Row games, but we also recognise those games are of a time, he said. They made sense within that era, and we were able to do things that felt good back then, but that tone is not something we feel like we want to do today. We had a different kind of story that we wanted to tell.
Yeah, one we don't want to buy.
No, yeah, the one that nobody wants to buy. That's the point of comedy, though.
That's not what is factoring in here. They never thought about what people wanted to buy. This is all about them. Them. Me. The story I want to tell, the story we want to tell, things that we think are appropriate. They at no point thought about the customer.
Yeah.
Didn't even cross their mind.
Whereas the customer wants the game where you can run down the street in a tiny pink leotard and beat people to death with a giant marital aid. That's Saints Row. Yes, it's edgy, and that's what people loved about it.
I'm not sure edgy's the right word.
Well, edgy
No, I
by
don't think
today's
it's
standards.
edgy. It's just absurd. That's the point.
It's completely ridiculous.
Like you wouldn't call Monty Python edgy. It was hardly edgy.
It was in the day.
Edgiest thing, not really.
They showed boobs.
The edgiest thing that they really did was make Life of Brian. And
yeah, that was extremely off.
given the time period, it wasn't really that edgy. It just offended the sensibilities of a handful of people who weren't really important to the market.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Is it apparently doggo time? It's apparently doggo time. So, yeah, people want the ridiculous, over the top, slightly offensive, sometimes nonsense. They don't want, the Grand Theft soy latte.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, you look at these four characters. What's the biggest crime they've committed? They've knocked someone's coffee over. And immediately apologized.
They used someone's iPhone charger without asking.
You fiend!
Man, you can tell these people never get out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Or wherever their studio is, Anaheim, whatever, California city. Because that just ain't how the world works. It's not even how it works in your own city, but you're too stupid to open your eyes.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't want to go to places where you would find that out either, because the amount of human feces you'd need to wade through first would be ridiculous.
The literal poo. Before you get to the metaphorical poo. So yeah, it looks awful, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it bombing.
Yeah. I had no interest in a reboot for Saints Row to begin with. I got my experience at Saints Row. I felt fairly complete at the time I played Saints Row 3.
If you wanted a little bit more of Saints Row, you had to Get Out of Hell.
Yeah,
which wasn't particularly good, but it was there.
It was for people who were big fans of Johnny Gat. It was not for Saints Row fans.
So literally nobody.
Well, some of the people who really liked the early Saints Row games were fans of him.
He did have a much better arc in the early
Most
games.
of the people who came in for the third one, which is, to be fair, the bulk of the audience, they don't really have any affection for him because he just doesn't really figure.
Yeah, he doesn't do much. Yes, it's doggo time. So with that and the announcement of doggo time, I think that's actually it. We're running out of content anyway.
We can hear your doggos signaling it's end of showtime.
Yes.
All right. Closing comments. Let's wrap it up.
I hope things return to normal soon.
I hope Princess Cindy lets me out of my house soon.
Joke's on you. There's people with shotguns out the front door.
No, that's your country.
No, they're down the street, waiting and watching.
Golly, y'all got to get out of that area of the world. I'm not sure mine will stay much better either. For
Yours
long,
will
but-
definitely not.
Yours is run by a literal corpse.
Yes.
Oh, it's run by the people that puppet the corpse, but unfortunately the strings are broken.
Yeah. How did you do that, dog? He jumped up, pressed a button on my keyboard, and my character dove. I don't know what he pressed.
Alrighty. I think that's where we're going to wrap the show, folks. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. And we's off.